Chapter 1. Return from the celestial prison in his past life. Qin Yu was the unrivaled emperor of the upper realm. During the critical moment of refining the Chaos Divine Cauldron, he was besieged by 10 emperors and, regrettably, self-destructed. Upon rebirth, he astonishingly found himself branded as the eternal sinner of the Qin family in the Divine Martial Dynasty, bearing the stigma of desertion, poisoned and imprisoned for 5 long years. His family had fallen into decline because of him. Faced with the scorn of his kin, the power grab of his second uncle, and the disdain of his fiancée in the northern Peace Continent, he awakened in a celestial prison of the Divine Martial Dynasty. Ouch, it hurts. Qin Yu struggled to open his heavy eyelids, a look of confusion etched upon his face. Who am I? Where am I? Suddenly, countless fragmented memories surged into his mind like an overwhelming tide. He was once the unbeatable Emperor Qin Yu of the upper realm. Yet at the pivotal moment of refining the Chaos Divine Cauldron, he was attacked by 10 emperors and forced to self-detonate. Now, he had been reborn in the lower realm, specifically in the northern Peace Continent, within the Divine Martial Dynasty, as the namesake of the Qin family, a mere waste of talent in Qingyuan City. The original owner of this body had tragically perished just 2 days before his release from prison. At that moment, he felt a sudden tremor in his dantian. His consciousness instinctively probed inward, and Qin Yu's pupils constricted sharply. The supreme treasure, the Chaos Divine Cauldron, which had shattered alongside him during his self-destruction, was now floating within his dantian's qi. The Chaos Divine Cauldron had followed him here. Even with his emperor's mindset, he couldn't help but feel ecstatic. He understood that the Chaos Divine Cauldron was a treasure born at the dawn of chaos, far surpassing any artifact. Even in his previous life as the unrivaled emperor, it had taken him a millennium to nearly refine it. However, he had been attacked at a critical juncture, leading to his self-destruction. In this life, with the Chaos Divine Cauldron by his side, how could he not ascend to greatness once more? Suddenly, a profound and obscure piece of information surged from the cauldron into his mind, transforming into an unparalleled technique titled Chaos Divine Art. This supreme technique comprised 99 layers, each intricately profound and imbued with the essence of the Tao. With the discerning eyes of an emperor from his past life, he recognized that this technique was far more profound and powerful than any imperial technique he had previously cultivated. Truly a blessing in disguise. By practicing this technique, I shall surpass my former self. He could hardly contain his eagerness to comprehend it, and soon he had grasped the 5th layer of the Chaos Divine Art. Remarkably, this 5th layer was already equivalent to the mystical level techniques of this realm. It is worth noting that ordinary Qi refining cultivators merely practiced yellow level techniques. The original owner had languished in prison for 5 years and, at the age of 21, remained stagnant at the 3rd layer of Qi refining. Qin Yu, no longer greedy, immediately began to cultivate using the 5th layer of the Chaos Divine Art. As he activated the technique, the sparse spiritual energy of the heavens and earth surged wildly into his body. Soon, a visible vortex of Qi formed around him, causing a gust of chilling wind to sweep through the prison cell. What is happening? Why is there suddenly a wind in this cursed place? The guards outside were startled by this unexpected phenomenon, peering in with curiosity. They merely attributed the unusual phenomenon to abnormal weather, failing to associate it with the so-called waste. Qin Yu. 2 days swiftly passed, when the jailer opened the prison door to inform Qin Yu of his release. He had silently transcended from the 3rd to the 4th level of Qi refinement. Due to his practice of the chaotic divine art, his aura was remarkably calm and restrained. Had he not chosen to reveal it himself, outsiders would have been utterly unable to discern his true cultivation level. The Qin family had sent a steward, who was at the Qi refinement stage, accompanied by several subordinates to fetch him. Upon seeing Qin Yu, their faces were marred with disdain and contempt. How unfortunate it was to have to retrieve this worthless individual. Such a sinner, were he not the sole son of the family head, would have long been abandoned. What purpose did his return to the Qin family serve? Even if he were to return, he would face the family's judgment and estrangement. The hushed whispers, neither too loud nor too soft, were perfectly audible to Qin Yu. From the memories of his previous life, he understood why these subordinates held such animosity towards him. 5 years prior, the original Qin Yu, as the only son of the Qin family head, was dispatched to serve in the military and fight valiantly to bring glory to his family. However, he had fled the battlefield in cowardice. Upon learning of Qin Yu's flight, the court decreed the annihilation of the Qin family's 9 clans. Just as the Qin family faced extinction, their only golden core ancestor intervened to plead for mercy, personally going to the front lines. Though the Qin family avoided total annihilation, Qin Yu, as a deserter, was spared death but sentenced to 5 years in the celestial prison. Shortly thereafter, the family's ancestor went missing in battle, presumed dead. Since the demise of their sole golden core powerhouse, the Qin family fell under pressure from rival clans, gradually declining. Meanwhile, the original Qin Yu became the family's pariah, scorned by all. Yet, from the fragmented memories of the original host, it seemed he had been framed. Additionally, it became evident that during these 5 years, this body had been afflicted with blocked meridians and accumulated chronic toxins. Clearly, someone had poisoned his meals, intent on ensuring he did not survive his time in the celestial prison. Who could it be? Such a malevolent heart stirred anger within Qin Yu. Rest assured, now that I inhabit your body, I shall bear your burdens. This humiliation shall be avenged, and this enmity shall be repaid 100-fold. At this moment, the carriage gradually departed from the celestial prison, heading towards Qingyuan city. Along the way, the mocking jeers of the subordinates never ceased. Yet, Qin Yu appeared oblivious, seated calmly within the carriage, continuing to circulate the chaotic divine art in silent cultivation. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth was stirred, swirling around the carriage in fierce gusts. Oddly, why was it so windy along this route? The steward lifted the carriage curtain, gazing curiously outside, murmuring to himself. This tempest lasted a full half-month, unbeknownst to him that it was all a result of Qin Yu's cultivation. After an arduous journey, the carriage finally entered Qingyuan city. At this moment, Qin Yu had surreptitiously advanced from the 4th level of Qi refinement to the 6th level. Merely by absorbing the essence of heaven and earth, one can break through 2 realms within half a month. Such a pace, if disseminated, would surely reverberate throughout the entire Qingyuan city. However, Qin Yu furrowed his brow slightly, feeling that this speed was still too sluggish. It appears that to expedite his ascension, he must acquire a substantial amount of spiritual stones and rare treasures for cultivation. At this moment, the carriage glided slowly along the streets of Qingyang city, making its way toward the Qin residence. Yet, Qin Yu's keen perception detected several malevolent gazes directed at him. Are these the spies of the other 3 prominent families? A cold smile flickered in Qin Yu's heart, though his expression remained impassive. It seems the Qin family's predicament is even more dire than he had imagined. Soon, the carriage came to a halt before the Qin estate, attracting the attention of the onlookers. Isn't that the family's pariah, Qin Yu? Look, that cowardly, timid waste has returned. As soon as he alighted from the carriage, instead of the warm embrace of family, he was met with the unabashed scorn and vitriol from the maids, servants, and even some young members of the clan. They laid the blame for the Qin family's current decline squarely on Qin Yu's shoulders for his retreat 5 years prior. Just then, a young man clad in fine robes stepped forth from the crowd. He appeared to be around 17 or 18 years old, his face bearing an air of arrogance and bitterness that belied his youth. Qin Yu, the youth shouted, pointing an accusing finger at him. You, the disgrace of our family. What face do you have to step into the gates of the Qin residence? 5 years ago, if it weren't for your cowardice, our ancestor would not have perished in battle. The Qin family would not have been reduced to the state of being bullied by others. All of this is your doing. You are the harbinger of misfortune for our clan. Get out of the Qin family. This young man was Qin Xiao, the younger son of Qin Tianba, who was at odds with Qin Yu's father. Now at the 5th level of Qi refinement, he was among the most talented in the clan. As Qin Xiao's anger escalated, he spat as he approached Qin Yu. I am still the son of the head of the family. What right do you, an outsider, have to command me to leave? Qin Yu retorted coldly. It was because Qin Tianba's lineage lacked the true blood of the Qin family that Qin Yu considered them mere outsiders. What nonsense are you spouting? You, the disgrace of the family, are the true outsider. Qin Xiao seethed. You waste. How dare you act so brazenly? I will tear your mouth apart. However, before he could finish his threats, Qin Yu swiftly retaliated with a powerful strike. Slap. Qin Xiao was sent flying, eliciting gasps of astonishment from the crowd. You dare to ambush me? You seek death. Qin Xiao roared, his fury igniting. Just as he was about to charge forward, several guards intervened to block his path. Young Master Qin Xiao, do not be agitated. Now is not the time for trouble. Clearly, these guards were responsible for maintaining order and wished to avoid any altercations. Qin Xiao finally calmed down, though his resentment simmered beneath the surface as he declared ominously, Humph, the days are long ahead, Qin Yu. You wait and see. I will ensure you do not find peace. Chapter 2. Internal turmoil and external threats. Qin Yu cast a disdainful glance at him before entering the Qin residence. Shortly thereafter, he was escorted by a servant to a dilapidated and remote courtyard. The steward conveyed the decision made by the family's higher-ups. Qin Yu was stripped of his title as the young master and relegated to the status of an ordinary clan member, with a mandate to work as a miner for penance in 5 days. Hearing this, Qin Yu furrowed his brow. How could the once invincible emperor be reduced to mining? This he could not accept. However, he gleaned another piece of information from the steward. The upcoming martial competition in 3 days would see the victor reinstated as the young master. A martial competition? That implies I still have a chance to reclaim my position, Qin Yu mused internally. He understood that regaining the title of young master would absolve him from the burden of mining, but first, he must defeat all the young clan members. As night deepened, the cold moonlight spilled over the small courtyard. Qin Yu dismissed the seemingly obedient, yet actually watchful maidservant and stood alone in the yard. He slowly drew a rusted iron sword from his waist, realizing it was time to practice his swordsmanship to enhance his strength. In his previous life as the invincible emperor, the sword arts had been one of his greatest strengths. He recalled the countless unparalleled sword techniques he had created in his past, making slight modifications to adapt them to the capabilities of his current body. With a clang, the sword shimmered, tracing profound trajectories beneath the moonlight. A brand new sword technique gradually took shape in his hands, which he named the flowing cloud sword art. The sword movements were both ethereal and deadly. After a night of cultivation, Qin Yu's mastery of the flowing cloud sword art grew increasingly refined. However, at the break of dawn, an arrow shot into the courtyard, accompanied by a note. It read, "Waste, do you have the courage to come to the martial arena?" Upon examining the handwriting, Qin Yu immediately deduced it was penned by Qin Xiao. He was intrigued to see what scheme Qin Xiao was concocting and set off, disregarding the patriarch's orders of house arrest as he strode out of the crumbling courtyard. The maidservant anxiously attempted to dissuade him, but he remained unfazed. He walked slowly through the Qin estate, keenly observing his surroundings. The Qin family, once one of the 4 prominent families of Qingyuan City 5 years ago, had lost its former grandeur. From the murmurs of the servants, he learned that the Qin family's enterprises were being steadily eroded and suppressed by the other 3 prominent families, making their situation increasingly precarious. What weighed heavier on his heart was the realization that the Qin family was not united internally. A faction led by his second uncle, Qin Tianba, was restlessly vying for resources and influence within the family. Qin Tianba, although ostensibly his uncle, was actually an adopted son of the family patriarch, lacking any blood relation to the Qins. With the patriarch now missing, Qin Tianba's ambitions had become unrestrained, seeking to usurp power. It was evident that the Qin family was besieged by both internal strife and external threats, standing on the precipice of disaster. Clearly, the plight of the Qin family was more perilous than he had imagined. Lost in thought, Qin Yu arrived at the martial arena of the Qin family. At this moment, the training ground is alive with the fierce confrontation between 2 young men, surrounded by a throng of onlookers from the Qin clan. Among them is Qin Bufan, the cousin of Qin Yu, possessing the 5th layer of Qi refinement. His opponent is none other than Qin Xiao, who had berated him most harshly the previous day. Qin Xiao's moves are bold and aggressive, forcing Qin Bufan into a series of retreats, perilously close to defeat. Suddenly, a resounding thud echoes through the air as Qin Bufan, caught off guard, receives a powerful punch to the chest from Qin Xiao. He crashes heavily to the ground, several meters away, and immediately spits out a spray of blood. The surrounding members of the Qin family display a range of reactions. Some revel in his misfortune, others observe with indifference. A few exhibit a glimmer of sympathy, yet none dare to intervene on behalf of Qin Bufan. Clearly, Qin Xiao's arrogance and tyranny have been a long-standing issue within the Qin family. Ha ha ha. Qin Xiao laughs heartily, his voice brimming with pride and arrogance. Qin Bufan, you worthless wretch, with your meager strength, how dare you challenge me, Qin Xiao? He strides over to Qin Bufan, looking down upon him from a lofty height. Your cowardly cousin, Qin Yu, is even more of a failure. I wonder if he would dare to come to your rescue. No, brother Qin Yu is not a failure. He is not a coward, Qin Bufan weeps. Meanwhile, Qin Yu stands at the periphery of the crowd, witnessing the scene unfold before him. An invisible wrath quietly stirs within him. Is this the current state of the Qin family? Qin betraying Qin, the strong preying upon the weak, devoid of any sense of unity. Qin Bufan, who had been relatively kind to him in the memories of the original owner, is now being so cruelly bullied. And yet, Qin Xiao is merely the son of Qin Tianba, a distant branch of the family. Emboldened by his father's influence, he dares to rampage unchecked in the family's training arena. The lineage of Qin Tianba is indeed a malignant tumor that must be eradicated. Qin Yu's gaze suddenly turns icy and resolute, his heart brimming with determination. Just then, Qin Xiao notices him and flashes a triumphant grin, loudly mocking. Oh? Isn't that our cowardly young master? Ha ha ha, what a rare sight. The coward who fled 5 years ago dares to show his face in the training ground today? Are you here to witness the spectacle? Or do you wish to be trampled underfoot like your pathetic cousin? The members of the Qin family shift their attention, some delighting in the misfortune, while others whisper amongst themselves. Qin Xiao's words ring true. Had it not been for Qin Yu's flight, the court would not have been angered. leading to their ancestors' forced deployment to the battlefield and subsequent death. The Qin family would not have faced hostility from the other three major clans. Indeed, to still show up now is a display of utter shamelessness. Qin Yu's expression remains unperturbed, his gaze slicing through the air like a blade directed at Qin Xiao. Qin Xiao, your lineage is nothing but a pack of dogs raised by my Qin family. What right do you have to bark at your master? At this proclamation, the crowd erupts in astonishment. Qin Xiao's face pales instantly, his fists clenched tightly, veins bulging ominously. What did you say? You dare to call me a dog? Qin Yu, you worthless fool, dare to insult me? Qin Xiao was utterly enraged. How could such a lowly individual humiliate him so? Today, I shall make you aware of the dire consequences of provoking my wrath. With a thunderous roar, Qin Xiao unleashed the full force of his cultivation, surging to the 5th level of Qi refinement. A formidable wave of spiritual energy enveloped the entire training ground, stirring fierce gusts of wind. He struck with a powerful punch, the force of which howled through the air, aiming directly at Qin Yu's face. This blow encapsulated all his spiritual power, intending to severely injure Qin Yu in a single strike. However, in the face of this overwhelming attack, Qin Yu remained remarkably composed. He gently countered with his own fist, allowing their blows to meet, and then deliberately staggered back 3 steps in a seemingly awkward manner. Yet, the triumphant smile on Qin Xiao's face instantly froze. How could this be? His full-force strike at the 5th level of Qi refinement had failed to propel the mere 3rd-level Qin Yu away? This was starkly different from the effortless domination he had envisioned. What was happening? How had Qin Yu withstood Qin Xiao's assault? No. Wasn't Qin Yu at the 3rd level of Qi refinement? How could he possibly withstand a full-force strike from someone at the 5th level? Could it be that Qin Yu was concealing his true strength? The surrounding clan members murmured among themselves, their eyes filled with confusion and astonishment. Little did they know, Qin Yu had already advanced to the 6th level of Qi refinement. He simply chose not to reveal it. At that moment, a flicker of unease rose within Qin Xiao, but it was quickly quelled by his fury. Just now, I held back. I refuse to believe this waste can withstand my next blow. Qin Xiao roared once more, channeling all his spiritual energy into his fist. This time, he held nothing back, launching an even more ferocious assault. His fist descended like a meteor upon Qin Yu, the air splitting with a sharp sonic boom. Yet, at this critical juncture, a glimmer of cold light flashed in Qin Yu's eyes. His figure shifted like a specter, effortlessly evading Qin Xiao's attack. In a swift counter, Qin Yu delivered a slap, as quick as lightning. A crisp and resounding smack echoed throughout the training ground. Qin Xiao spun half a circle on the spot, letting out a pained cry, resembling a kite severed from its string as he was sent flying backward. He crashed heavily to the ground several meters away, stirring up a cloud of dust. As he struggled to rise, blood poured from his mouth, revealing a bloodied front tooth. His left cheek was grotesquely swollen, 5 distinct fingerprints etched deeply upon it. All the onlooking members of the Qin clan, including Qin Bufan, stood in stunned silence. They could scarcely believe their eyes. The one deemed a waste, Qin Yu, had sent the 5th level Qin Xiao flying with a mere slap? My heavens! How could Qin Yu be so powerful? How could he have struck down Qin Xiao with a single blow? This was impossible, absolutely impossible. The crowd rubbed their eyes, convinced they must be hallucinating. Qin Bufan was equally shocked, his mouth agape, utterly speechless. In his recollections, he had never witnessed such a domineering side of Qin Yu. Qin Yu approached Qin Xiao, towering over him with an air of superiority. His frigid gaze was akin to that cast upon a lifeless dog. This slap serves to teach you a lesson, Qin Yu declared icily. It is also a warning. Should you dare to exploit your connections and bully the members of the Qin family again, the next consequence will not merely be the loss of a tooth. It will render you to a fate worse than death. Despite the blood spilling from his mouth, Qin Xiao's eyes still glimmered with resentment and defiance. Initially, he had lured Qin Yu out with the intent to humiliate him, yet he found himself struck down instead. How could a mere 3rd-tier Qi cultivator like you possess such strength? Qin Yu let out a cold laugh. Oh, who claimed I was merely at the 3rd tier? With that, he revealed his aura as a 6th-tier Qi cultivator, leaving the onlookers in stunned silence. What? You broke through from the 3rd tier to the 6th tier during 5 years in the dungeon? How is that possible? There were no cultivation resources, and you endured torment every day. In such extreme conditions, you managed to achieve a breakthrough? Qin Xiao exclaimed in disbelief. Qin Yu, uninterested in the incredulity, turned to lead Qin Bufan away. Although Qin Xiao now recognized his inferiority to Qin Yu, he still spoke with a semblance of bravado. Qin Yu, he rasped, struggling to point at him, do not revel in your triumph. My elder brother, Qin Haotian, will not let you off easily. He is a peak Qi master, and he will avenge me. Just wait to be torn to shreds. Qin Yu scoffed at the mention of Qin Haotian. That fool dares to threaten me? Seeing Qin Yu's arrogance, Qin Xiao shouted in anger, "Qin Yu, the martial arts competition for the younger generation of the Qin family is in 3 days. The victor will assume the position of the young master. My brother, Qin Haotian, will defeat everyone and claim that title. You, a mere waste, will be thoroughly cast aside. You are destined to remain a pariah of the Qin family." Upon hearing this, Qin Yu's steps faltered briefly. He slowly turned around, his gaze sharp as a sword as it swept over Qin Xiao. "Go back and inform Qin Haotian that the position of the young master of the Qin family is mine alone. He, a distant relative without any blood ties to the Qin family, is unworthy of even aspiring to it. When the time comes, I shall defeat your brother and everyone else, reclaiming the title of young master." As these words left his lips, the crowd erupted in astonishment once more. All eyes were fixed on Qin Yu, filled with disbelief. Had he lost his mind to utter such grandiose claims? Although he had indeed advanced to the 6th tier, Qin Haotian was at the peak of Qi cultivation. The chasm between their strengths was insurmountable. How could he dare to contend for the title of young master with his current power? Such arrogance was a manifestation of ignorance. Did he truly believe that breaking through to the 6th tier rendered him invincible? Perhaps 5 years of confinement had dulled his senses, prompting such reckless declarations. The crowd shook their heads, their initial astonishment giving way to disdainful ridicule. Qin Yu paid no heed to the murmurs of the crowd and turned to assist Qin Bufan in departing from the scene. Meanwhile, Qin Xiao, his face twisted in rage, stormed into Qin Haotian's residence. "Elder brother, you must stand up for me," Qin Xiao implored, kneeling on the ground, his eyes brimming with tears of humiliation. Qin Haotian, engaged in his cultivation, opened his eyes upon hearing the commotion, his brow furrowed at the sight of Qin Xiao in such a disheveled state. "What transpired? Who has reduced you to this?" "It was that Qin Yu." Qin Xiao gritted his teeth in response. Qin Haotian scoffed derisively. "That waste who is merely at the 3rd level of Qi refinement? Surely, you jest. Elder brother, I speak the truth. He truly bested me, and he has already ascended to the 6th level of Qi refinement." Qin Xiao's words caused a noticeable shift in Qin Haotian's expression, revealing his astonishment. At that moment, a commanding voice resonated from outside the door. "What? That waste, Qin Yu, has broken through to the 6th level of Qi refinement?" Qin Tianba strode into the room, his gaze dark and turbulent. Upon seeing Qin Tianba, Qin Xiao hastily bowed his head. "Father, you must intervene on my behalf. That Qin Yu is insufferably arrogant, proclaiming that our lineage is but the dogs of the Qin family." Upon hearing this, Qin Tianba's fury ignited. "Humph, this little wretch dares to utter such blasphemous words. It seems that 5 years in the dungeon have wrought a significant change in his character, to the point where he disregards even me. Indeed, father, this waste must pay the price." Qin Xiao's tone dripped with venom. "Wait, are you certain that Qin Yu has reached the 6th level of Qi refinement?" Qin Tianba inquired once more. "Absolutely. He displayed his cultivation aura in front of so many witnesses. It is undoubtedly the 6th level. He even claimed that in 3 days, he would defeat elder brother and reclaim the position of young master," Qin Xiao asserted with conviction. Hearing this, Qin Haotian waved his hand dismissively. "Humph, a mere 6th level Qi refinement practitioner dares to boast? I am at the pinnacle of Qi refinement. The chasm between us is vast and insurmountable." However, Qin Tianba fell into deep contemplation, a glimmer of surprise flickering in his eyes. The dungeon is a place devoid of cultivation resources, rife with torment. Moreover, he had bribed the guards to administer slow-acting poison to Qin Yu over the past 5 years, to survive such a dire environment. Let alone progress from the 3rd to the 6th level of Qi refinement, was astonishing. This was no ordinary feat. There must be something amiss. "Haotian, do not underestimate him," Qin Tianba cautioned gravely. "Those who rise from despair are often the most formidable. Perhaps he harbors great secrets or hidden trump cards." Qin Haotian dismissed the concern. "Father, are you not overestimating that waste? Merely breaking through to the 6th level after 5 years in the dungeon does not change the fact that he remains an insignificant insect in my presence. I could dispatch him with a single swipe. He is utterly unworthy of contending for the position of young master." Chapter 4. The position of young master. A glint of cold light flickered in Qin Tianba's eyes. "Regardless, it is prudent to remain cautious. Tomorrow's family meeting will see me propose a new suggestion, one that will utterly extinguish his hopes." Qin Haotian gazed at his father in bewilderment, inquiring, "What suggestion?" With a sinister smile, Qin Tianba replied, "The threshold for participating in the martial arts competition should be raised. If he cannot even qualify to participate, he certainly does not deserve to be your opponent." The following morning, the atmosphere in the Qin family's conference hall was heavy. The family head, Qin Tian, occupied the main seat, his visage haggard and his eyes filled with exhaustion. The elders and stewards lined up on either side, their expressions unusually grave. They had engaged in a meeting for an hour, deliberating various family matters. Esteemed members, Qin Tian began, his voice tinged with resignation. Our family situation is becoming increasingly dire. If we do not rally ourselves, I fear the Qin family may truly face decline. One of the senior elders stroked his beard and sighed. The family head speaks wisely. We indeed need to devise a solution. However, the immediate priority is the martial arts competition in 3 days, where we must select a capable young master, which is crucial for the family's future. The assembly nodded in agreement, discussing matters pertaining to the competition. After their deliberations concluded, Qin Tian prepared to adjourn the meeting. At that moment, the senior elder Qin Tianba abruptly rose. Family head, I have a suggestion. Qin Tian looked at Qin Tianba, a sense of unease creeping into his heart. Speak, he replied. Qin Tianba surveyed the room and declared in a resonant voice, regarding the eligibility for the martial arts competition, I believe we should elevate the standards. The current rules are excessively lenient, allowing any family member under the age of 22 to participate, which fails to reflect the competition's caliber. I propose that, in addition to age restrictions, participants must have attained at least the 8th level of Qi refinement. As these words echoed through the hall, a flurry of discussion erupted. Qin Tian's expression shifted slightly, as he immediately grasped Qin Tianba's intent. Second brother, isn't this a bit excessive? This could dampen the enthusiasm of the younger generation. After all, this competition is not solely about selecting a young master. It also serves as a valuable experience for them. Qin Tianba retorted with fervor, family head. Extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. Our family's current predicament allows for no negligence. Only the strongest among our kin deserve to vie for the position of young master. The third elder quickly concurred. Elder Tianba is correct. We cannot allow the less capable to squander our time. An 8th level Qi refinement threshold is entirely reasonable. Those below that level would only face defeat, rendering their participation meaningless. The 5th elder nodded in agreement. I support this proposal. The 7 stewards rose in unison, proclaiming their support as well. Qin Tian observed each high-ranking member standing to endorse Qin Tianba, and a chill enveloped his heart. He realized that his voice within the family had diminished significantly. Yet, he could not help but feel that this was unjust to those disciples with lesser cultivation. Qin Tian attempted one last stand. Qin Tianba sneered, family head, justice? In a world where strength reigns supreme, that is the truest form of justice. Lacking sufficient cultivation equates to a deficiency in strength. What qualifications do you possess to contend for the position of the young master? Do you truly wish for a weakling to lead our Qin family? Or is it that you, the master, harbor ulterior motives? These words rendered Qin Tian speechless, filled with helplessness within. The other senior members nodded in agreement, creating an atmosphere of overwhelming consensus within the grand hall. Qin Tian sighed deeply, fully aware that he was powerless to reverse the tide. Moreover, he held no hope for Qin Yu, believing that even if he were allowed to participate, there would be no possibility of seizing the title of young master. Thus, Qin Tian reluctantly acquiesced, stating, since everyone is in agreement, let us proceed according to Tianba's suggestion. As the words left his lips, Qin Tian's voice bore a particularly heavy weight. Following the conclusion of the meeting, attendees filed out one by one. Qin Tian slumped into his chair, his eyes filled with resignation and anxiety. As Qin Tianba passed by, a smug smile graced his lips. Brother, I am doing this for the good of the Qin family. It is not directed at anyone in particular. Qin Tian offered no response, merely fixing him with a piercing gaze. Meanwhile, in a secluded courtyard, Qin Bufan rushed in with an anxious expression. Cousin, there's trouble. Upon hearing the commotion, Qin Yu opened his eyes from his meditation. What is it? Qin Bufan, breathless, replied. The family just held a meeting and altered the rules for the martial arts competition. What rules? Qin Yu's expression hardened, sensing the impending gravity of the situation. It is said that participants must reach the 8th level of Qi refinement or higher to qualify for the position of young master. Brother, this rule was proposed by second uncle. It is clearly aimed at you. With only 2 days remaining until the competition, how could you possibly break through 2 minor realms in such a short time? Upon hearing this, Qin Yu displayed no signs of panic. Instead, a cold smile emerged on his face. The threshold raised to the 8th level of Qi refinement. It seems certain individuals are truly anxious. Qin Bufan, filled with concern, asked, Cousin, what shall we do? Should we approach the master and seek justice? Qin Yu shook his head. It would be futile. My father no longer possesses absolute authority within the family. This proposal has garnered the agreement of the majority of the senior members, making it difficult to alter. Are we to simply concede? Qin Bufan inquired, unwilling to accept such a fate. After all, the martial arts competition entails more than mere cultivation strength. Other assessments also play a significant role. Cousin, if you could participate, even if you cannot defeat Qin Haotian in the arena, you still have a chance to surpass him in other evaluations. Yet now, the opportunity to participate has been stripped away, extinguishing even that glimmer of hope. Qin Yu turned his gaze towards the sky, his eyes reflecting profound depth as he calmly stated, "Concede? Buffon, do you truly believe that this is the extent of my capabilities? In 2 days, to break through from the 6th level to the 8th level of Qi refinement. For others, this may seem impossible, but for me, it is merely a trivial matter." Qin Buffon's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at Qin Yu. "Brother, are you serious? Could you possibly advance from the 6th level of Qi refinement to the 8th level within just 2 days? Clearly, Qin Buffon found this hard to believe. In his eyes, it was nearly impossible. Even Qin Haotian, who was renowned as the most gifted among the younger generation of their clan, took a full year to make such a leap. Now, Qin Yu claimed he could achieve this feat in merely 2 days, which felt rather fanciful. Qin Yu, however, smiled slightly and replied, "Of course, it is true. I possess my own methods. Since they wish to play, I shall indulge them." Yet he was acutely aware that relying solely on absorbing the world's spiritual energy would not suffice for a breakthrough in such a short span of time. He required an ample supply of spirit stones and other resources for cultivation to facilitate this rapid advancement. Thus, his gaze turned towards the ascending tower within the city lord's mansion, a structure established to attract prodigies. The tower comprised 36 levels, each conjuring opponents of corresponding strength based on the challenger's cultivation level. Defeating these foes would allow one to ascend to the next level, until they were either defeated or chose to retreat. Should one conquer more than 10 levels, they would earn a reward of spirit stones from the city lord's mansion. It seemed I must venture into this ascending tower, Qin Yu mused. Chapter 5. The ascending tower. On the streets of Qingyuan City, a solitary figure walked slowly. Qin Yu, adorned with a black hat and clothed in simple green attire, exuded an aura so restrained that he appeared utterly inconspicuous, akin to an ordinary mortal. His disguised appearance was deliberate, intended to conceal his true identity. Raising his gaze towards the towering edifice in the distance, a glimmer of determination flashed in his eyes. The tower soared several hundred feet high, constructed entirely of massive green stones. Its surface was intricately carved with various totems of mythical beasts, emanating an ancient and enigmatic aura. The area around the tower was bustling with a constant flow of people, among whom were many formidable cultivators. Qin Yu centered his thoughts and approached the plaza before the ascending tower with measured steps. Soon, he halted to survey his surroundings. In the center of the plaza stood a middle-aged steward clad in a blue robe, whose cultivation level was commendable, having reached the initial stage of foundation establishment. Surrounding the tower were several seemingly idle cultivators, yet Qin Yu astutely sensed their watchful eyes scanning every individual entering and exiting the ascending tower. Eyes of various factions, perhaps? Qin Yu contemplated. Suppressing his thoughts, he made his way toward the steward. "Excuse me. I am new to Qingyuan City and wish to understand the rules for challenging the ascending tower," he inquired. The steward glanced at him, noting his unfamiliarity, and replied casually. "The rules are quite simple. The tower consists of 36 levels, each of which will conjure an opponent befitting your cultivation level. Defeating your adversary allows you to ascend to the next level. Failure or voluntary withdrawal results in exiting the tower. The ascending tower tests whether you possess strength far exceeding that of your peers at the same level. It is not merely a matter of higher cultivation making it easier to advance." A hint of pride flickered in the steward's eyes as he spoke of the rewards. Upon successfully surpassing the 10th level for the first time, one would be rewarded with 10,000 inferior spirit stones, and thereafter, each subsequent level would yield rewards that doubled. Qin Yu feigned astonishment, exclaiming, "Double? Does that imply?" "Haha, young lad, your imagination runs wild," interrupted the steward with a dismissive wave of his hand. "Reaching the 10th level is already an impressive feat. As for ascending higher," he gestured towards the lanterns adorning the tower, adding, "Do you see those lights? Each illuminated lantern signifies the completion of a level. Since the establishment of the ascending heaven tower, only a select few have managed to light up to the 20th level." Following the steward's direction, Qin Yu noted that the tower was indeed embellished with rows of luminous pearls, most of which were currently dim. What if one were to truly ascend beyond the 20th level? Qin Yu inquired further. The steward scoffed. "You dare to dream of levels beyond 20? The reward for the 21st level is a staggering 1,024,000 inferior spirit stones. Upon reaching the 22nd level, not only would one receive spirit stone rewards, but also other exceptional bonuses, though this is beyond your purview." A tremor coursed through Qin Yu's heart. Though his exterior maintained a facade of shock at the figure presented, The prospect of earning 1,024,000 inferior spirit stones for surpassing the 21st level was indeed astonishing, sufficient to elevate him to the 8th layer of Qi refinement, if not higher. Thank you for your enlightening words, esteemed steward, Qin Yu expressed with a respectful bow. Just as he prepared to depart, a familiar voice echoed from a distance. Young Master Qin Han, this time you shall surely break the record. Qin Yu's heart stirred as he followed the sound, spotting a young man clad in an opulent robe, making his way toward the ascending heaven tower amidst a throng of admirers. This individual, possessing striking features and an extraordinary aura, was evidently at the pinnacle of Qi refinement. Cousin Qin Han. Qin Yu's gaze sharpened. He recognized him as the son of the fourth uncle. Acknowledged as the most gifted among the younger generation of the Qin family, second only to Qin Haotian. I have come today to shatter the record set by Qin Haotian, declared Qin Han, standing tall with confidence. Years prior, he had reached the 16th level while at the 9th layer of Qi refinement. Now, at the pinnacle, he was certain he could surpass it. The surrounding followers eagerly flattered him. Young Master Qin Han, your innate talent is unparalleled. What is the 16th level to you? Indeed. Perhaps you will even conquer the 20th level. Qin Yu observed quietly from the sidelines, contemplating. So it seems that Qin Haotian's record stands at the 16th level. At that moment, the steward recognized Qin Han and immediately adopted a tone of reverence, stating, "Ah, it is young Master Qin Han. You need not wait in line. Please proceed directly into the tower." Qin Han nodded haughtily and strode towards the tower, under the watchful eyes of the crowd. "We shall await the good news from young Master Qin Han here," the followers proclaimed, as Qin Yu blended into the throng. In a short while, the pearls on the tower began to illuminate one by one. The first level, the second level, the third level, at a rapid pace. It was evident that Qin Han's prowess was indeed formidable. Soon, the lights reached the 10th level, as expected of the fourth young master. This speed far surpasses that of ordinary prodigies, the followers excitedly discussed. However, starting from the 11th level, the pace of advancement evidently slowed. The 11th level took a quarter of an hour, while the 12th nearly half an hour. By the time the tower light illuminated the 13th level, an hour had passed. Yet, the light for the 14th level remained stubbornly dim. After another half hour, Qin Han emerged from the tower, his face ashen. His attendants exchanged glances, hesitant to speak. Humph, Qin Han scoffed, his eyes filled with frustration. The opponent at the 14th level was exceedingly formidable. I was drained of my energy and ultimately defeated. Young master, you have already achieved remarkable feats. 99% of people cannot even reach the 14th level. One attendant quickly offered consolation. Remarkable, my foot. I breached the 14th level a year ago, Qin Han retorted bitterly. Now, my skills and martial techniques have significantly improved, yet I am unable to surpass my previous record. Nevertheless, others were not surprised. After all, the Celestial Tower tests whether challengers possess strength far beyond their peers. With the advancement of cultivation, the opponents encountered within the tower also rise to corresponding levels of power. Thus, a higher cultivation does not necessarily mean an easier passage. In fact, some individuals, upon breaking through, find themselves progressing through fewer levels. Only those with exceptional talent and potential will become stronger than their peers as they advance in cultivation. Qin Han departed in a fury, having received no rewards. Rewards are only granted upon the first successful breach, unless one surpasses previously unchallenged levels to obtain new rewards. At this moment, Qin Yu had become well versed in the rules of the Celestial Tower and slowly approached the steward. I wish to challenge the tower. The steward glanced up, recognizing him as the young man who had inquired about the rules. He casually asked, name? Cultivation level? In order to conceal his identity, Qin Yu decided to use a pseudonym. I am Qin Xian, a 6th layer Qi refinement cultivator, he replied. The steward jotted down a few notes in the registry and then handed him a cerulean token. Know your limits. Do not overreach. If you cannot overcome, exit early to avoid needless punishment. His tone was laced with evident disdain, as most who attempted the tower failed to pass the 5th level. Chapter 6. Drawing attention, Qin Yu accepted the token, sensing the unique aura it contained. He then lowered his hat and walked toward the entrance of the Celestial Tower. A line had formed, and he silently positioned himself at the end. The cultivators ahead entered the tower one by one, though most faltered at the initial levels. Occasionally, someone would reach the 6th or 7th level, which was considered a commendable achievement. After an hour, it was finally Qin Yu's turn. Next, Qin Xian, the steward called. Gripping the token tightly, Qin Yu strode confidently toward the entrance of the tower. The doors slowly opened before him, and a rich wave of spiritual energy surged forth. Without hesitation, he stepped inside, and the scene before him transformed in an instant. The originally narrow entrance transformed into a vast expanse, while a figure gradually coalesced. It was an opponent of equal cultivation to Qin Yu, standing at the 6th level of Qi refinement, wielding a long sword with an aura that was chilling. A subtle smile curved Qin Yu's lips as his right hand slowly rested upon the hilt of his sword. Let me witness the prowess of the adversary conjured by the ascending tower. No sooner had he spoken than he drew his sword with a swift motion. A brilliant beam of sword light cleaved through the void, dazzling and rapid. The illusory opponent was caught unawares, completely obliterated by the strike, dissipating into specks of light. Is this the challenge of the first layer? Qin Yu shook his head. Such a foe was pathetically weak in his eyes. A surge of light enveloped him. And in the next moment, he found himself in the second layer. Outside the tower, the first lamp flickered to life, yet no one took notice. As passing the first layer was hardly a noteworthy feat subsequently, the second stage conjured 2 opponents at the 6th level of Qi refinement, 3 in the 3rd stage, and so forth, up to the 10th stage. When the 3rd, 4th, and 5th lamps illuminated in succession, it began to capture the crowd's attention. So swift? Who is this challenger? It seems to be someone named Qin Xiao, at the 6th level of Qi refinement. Whispers rippled through the spectators. His speed was utterly astonishing. Soon, Qin Yu stepped into the 10th layer, where 10 figures materialized before him. Each was at the 6th level of Qi refinement, brandishing various weapons, their presence formidable. 10 adversaries of the same rank were still too feeble. Qin Yu scoffed inwardly. However, to avoid drawing excessive attention, he resolved to decelerate his pace slightly. As he unsheathed his longsword, Qin Yu employed the most basic of sword techniques. The sound of clashing swords echoed through the air, creating an illusion of a fierce battle. While in reality, he maneuvered with effortless grace. Amidst the flurry of sword shadows, he deliberately feigned great exertion. Indeed, this 10th layer is no trivial matter, he remarked aloud. After a brief interval, the final phantom shattered, and the 10th lamp glowed brightly. The onlookers outside the tower erupted in astonishment. 10 layers completed. And at such a rapid pace. Observe his speed. Not a single challenge took longer than a brief tea time. Who exactly is this Qin Xiao? We have never heard of him. The officials responsible for maintaining order began to murmur amongst themselves, speculating fervently. As Qin Yu entered the 11th layer, the phantom opponent before him had ascended to the 7th level of Qi refinement. With this enhancement, he was truly facing an adversary beyond his rank. He contemplated silently, recognizing it as part of the ascending tower's rules. Once more, he wielded his sword, its light flowing like water, ceaseless and fluid. Even confronting an opponent at the 7th level of Qi refinement, Qin Yu remained unfazed. Within a brief tea time, the illusion shattered, and the 11th lamp ignited. The spectators outside were once again left in a state of shock, each one utterly amazed. Heavens! It has only been a short while. And this fellow appears to be a genius. His speed rivals, if not surpasses, that of young Master Qin Han from before. This Qin Xiao is undoubtedly not from Qingyuan City. I have never heard of such a name. Amidst the astonishment of the crowd, Qin Yu continued his ascent. Upon reaching the 12th level, he was faced with 2 opponents at the 7th layer of Qi refinement. Qin Yu's swordsmanship became increasingly exquisite, flowing like water. With a whoosh, the sword energy surged, and the 2 phantoms were simultaneously shattered, illuminating the 12th lantern of the tower. In a nearby pavilion adjacent to the ascending tower, a middle-aged man was observing the situation within the tower through a special array. Sun Jian, what are you watching? Another steward approached. I am observing that young man named Qin Xiao, Sun Jian replied, astonishment evident in his eyes. His martial skills and sword techniques are remarkably refined, and his spiritual power is quite substantial. What? The steward leaned in closer to observe, immediately gasping in awe. The mastery of his martial skills and sword techniques is simply beyond what one would expect from someone in the Qi refinement stage. Indeed, I sense that his martial skills have reached the profound level. Sun Jian nodded repeatedly, his eyes filled with shock. After all, it is typically only those who reach the foundation establishment stage that can master profound martial techniques. Yet here is a 6th layer Qi refinement practitioner wielding such skills. This is indeed rare. Within the tower, Qin Yu continued to press forward. On the 13th level, he faced 3 opponents at the 7th layer of Qi refinement. The 14th level brought him 4 such opponents, and on the 15th level, 5. With each layer, he maintained a steady rhythm. The lanterns illuminated one after another at an astonishing pace. Reaching the 15th level had already broken the record for Qingyuan City this year. The crowd gathered in increasing numbers, hundreds surrounding the ascending tower, making it nearly impossible to pass. On the 16th level, he confronted 6 opponents at the 7th layer of Qi refinement. Qin Yu's sword intent became even more formidable, each strike landing with unparalleled precision. Boom! The last phantom fell, and the 16th lantern lit up. Ascending to the 17th level, he faced 7 opponents. With a swift flash of his sword, 7 phantoms were simultaneously vanquished, and the 17th lantern glowed. On the 18th level, he encountered 8 opponents. Qin Yu began to employ more advanced sword techniques, his sword intent surging like a tide. "Break!" he exclaimed lightly, and the 8 phantoms instantly vanished, igniting the 18th lantern. On the 19th level, he faced 9 opponents. This time, Qin Yu's swordsmanship reached new heights. After deliberately engaging in combat for half an hour, he unleashed 9 sword lights simultaneously, causing all 9 phantoms to collapse at once. The moment the 19th lantern illuminated, the entire exterior of the ascending tower erupted in fervor. 19 levels. Goodness, what sort of prodigy is this? Is he on the verge of breaking a century-old record? The crowd erupted in thunderous discussions. At that moment, Zhao Qinglong, the supervisor of the ascending tower, was in a pavilion handling official matters. "Supervisor, I have learned that a prodigy who once breached the 15th level has been assassinated. A subordinate has come to report." "What?" Zhao Qinglong furrowed his brow. "This marks the 3rd incident this month. It appears someone is targeting the geniuses certified by our Ascension Tower." "Indeed, Supervisor, we must bolster our vigilance," the subordinate respectfully replied. Just then, Sun Jian rushed in with urgency. "Supervisor, I have urgent news to convey." "What matter has you so flustered?" Zhao Qinglong inquired, somewhat displeased. "Someone has surpassed the 19th level, and they continue to advance," Sun Jian exclaimed with excitement. "What?" Zhao Qinglong sprang to his feet, a glint of brilliance flashing in his eyes. "What did you say? Someone has ascended to the 19th level of the Ascension Tower?" Chapter 7. Breaking records. "Yes, Supervisor." Sun Jian's voice trembled slightly. "The individual named Qin Xian is now challenging the 20th level." Zhao Qinglong's heart trembled. "Let us go. Follow me at once." He then strode purposefully towards the Ascension Tower. Inside the tower, Qin Yu had already stepped into the 20th level. Before him stood 10 opponents at the 7th level of Qi refinement, their auras more formidable than before. "The 20th level, let me witness your prowess," Qin Yu murmured, a flicker of excitement in his eyes. 10 phantoms lunged at him simultaneously, a torrent of attacks overwhelming him. Qin Yu's figure flickered, his spiritual energy surging as he wielded his longsword. Flowing cloud sword technique, he called out. At last, he unleashed the true sword technique, the sword energy billowing like clouds. Unending. Boom, boom, boom. The 10 phantoms retreated in disarray under the onslaught of the sword energy. This battle consumed Qin Yu over half an hour. Ultimately, all 10 phantoms dissipated, and the 20th lantern of the tower ignited. Of course, he still had strength in reserve and had not exerted his full power. Outside the tower, the crowd was utterly frenzied. The 20th level, a miracle, an unprecedented feat in Qingyuan City for a century. Zhao Qinglong arrived at the scene, witnessing the 20 lit lanterns. His eyes filled with astonishment. "Supervisor, could this Qin Xian be a genius from some major power?" Sun Jian inquired softly beside him. "It is highly likely," Zhao Qinglong nodded, his expression grave. "Immediately gather more personnel, closely monitor, and investigate his identity." Understood, Sun Jian promptly set about making arrangements. Inside the tower, Qin Yu stepped into the 21st level. The aura of this level was markedly different, deeper, and more powerful. Before him materialized a single phantom. Yet its cultivation reached the 8th level of Qi refinement. The 8th level of Qi refinement is quite a formidable opponent. A glimmer of brilliance flickered in Qin Yu's eyes. The phantom wielded a spear, its aura as imposing as mountains and seas. "Come," Qin Yu called out softly. The long sword was drawn, its light dazzling like stars. Flowing cloud sword technique, the sea of clouds roiling. The sword energy surged forth like a tidal wave, its might magnified several-fold compared to before. The 8th level phantom showed no fear, its spear like a dragon, charging directly forward. Clang, clang, clang. The clash of swords and spears reverberated throughout the tower. Qin Yu's figure flickered, and his sword techniques became increasingly profound. The flowing cloud sword technique unleashed a myriad of sword shadows that surged from all directions towards the phantom. The phantom spear technique was exquisite, deflecting the majority of the sword shadows. Yet, Qin Yu's relentless onslaught was akin to a tide. Engaging in fierce combat for half an hour. With a low shout, Qin Yu executed the ultimate strike of the flowing cloud sword technique, intent on concluding the battle. A dazzling beam of sword light cleaved through the heavens, utterly shattering the phantom at the 8th layer of Qi refinement. The 21st lamp of the tower ignited, igniting fervor outside the tower once more. The 21st layer shattered a century-old record. This individual was undoubtedly an extraordinary prodigy. It was truly unexpected to witness someone break the century-long record of the ascending tower today. Who could this person be? Surely, they must be a prodigy nurtured by those powerful families. Outside the tower, the crowd was utterly astonished, engaging in fervent discussions. Zhao Qinglong gazed at the second lamp. his eyes brimming with shock and excitement. This Qin Xian had an undeniably remarkable background, stirring up immense waves within his heart. Inside the tower, Qin Yu observed the teleportation array that materialized before him, a faint smile gracing his lips. The 21st layer secured him a fortune of 10 million spirit stones. Given his current strength, surpassing more levels was not beyond the realm of possibility. He could even challenge the 36th layer directly, which would undoubtedly astonish the entire dynasty. However, such an act would likely attract the attention of formidable cultivators, leading to unforeseen complications. Thus, to avoid excessive exposure and greater scrutiny, he decided to halt his ascent here. Upon entering the 22nd layer, he deliberately engaged in a fierce battle with his opponent for half an hour, ultimately feigning defeat before vanishing from the tower. In the next moment, he emerged outside the ascending tower. He has emerged. This young man has conquered 21 layers. Voices erupted within the crowd, accompanied by numerous gazes directed toward Qin Yu. However, Qin Yu had altered his appearance, rendering him unrecognizable as the Qin Yu of the Qin family. At that moment, Qin Yu smiled calmly and approached the steward. I have come to claim my reward. The steward regarded him with awe in his eyes. Very well, young friend. Your reward is prepared. This storage bag contains 10 million low-grade spirit stones. Do take good care of it. Upon hearing this figure, the crowd erupted once more. 10 million spirit stones. Such a sum was akin to an overnight fortune for Qi refinement cultivators. Many Qi refinement practitioners cast envious glances, some even tinged with admiration. Qin Yu accepted the storage bag, savoring the abundant aura of spirit stones within. Thank you, he said, cupping his hands in gratitude, and turned to depart. Wait. At that moment, Zhao Qinglong approached swiftly. Qin Xian, I am Zhao Qinglong, the supervisor of the ascending tower. May I have a moment of your time? Qin Yu glanced at him and nodded. Certainly. The two retreated to a quiet corner, where a formation isolated their conversation from prying ears. Dear Qin Xian, your talent is indeed astonishing. Zhao Qinglong spoke directly, inquiring if you would be inclined to join our city lord's mansion. We can offer the finest cultivation resources and techniques. Qin Yu shook his head and replied, Thank you for your kind offer, but as a solitary cultivator, I cherish my freedom. Zhao Qinglong, feeling a tinge of disappointment, dared not press further. However, he added, should you ever require assistance, do not hesitate to reach out. Our city lord's mansion will surely lend its full support. Qin Yu nodded appreciatively. Thank you. I shall take my leave. With that, he turned and departed, yet many pairs of eyes were fixed upon him. Qin Yu endeavored to conceal his aura as he navigated through the bustling streets. Only after eluding his pursuers did he return to the Qin residence. Meanwhile, Zhao Qinglong rushed back to the city lord's mansion. He strode purposefully into the depths of the assembly hall, his face alight with unprecedented excitement and astonishment, his heart tumultuous with overwhelming waves of emotion. City Lord, City Lord. Zhao Qinglong's voice resonated outside the hall, barely concealing his exhilaration. What is the matter that you are so flustered? A stern voice emanated from within. It was none other than the city lord of Qingyuan City, the powerful golden core cultivator, Qian Ning. City Lord, there is a significant matter, an extraordinary one. Zhao Qinglong quickly entered the hall, kneeling on one knee, his voice trembling with anticipation. Today, in the Ascension Tower, an unparalleled prodigy emerged, having conquered the 21st floor. What? Conquered the 21st floor? Are you certain you did not missee? Qian Ning abruptly rose from his seat, his eyes ablaze with incredulity. I witnessed it with my own eyes. It is without a doubt, Zhao Qinglong affirmed respectfully. This individual calls himself Qin Xian and appears to be in his early 20s. No one has breached the 21st floor in a century. He has shattered this long-standing record. Qian Ning began pacing the hall, his voice low and contemplative. Where is this individual now? He has already departed. I extended an invitation for him to join the city lord's mansion, but he declined, stating he is a solitary cultivator who values his freedom. Zhao Qinglong recounted with a hint of regret. A solitary cultivator? Qian Ning scoffed, his disbelief palpable. How could someone with such talent possibly be an ordinary solitary cultivator? Immediately conduct a thorough investigation into his background. If he truly is a solitary cultivator, we must spare no expense to recruit him into our city lord's mansion. Such a prodigy must not be allowed to ally with any other forces. Chapter 8. The martial arts tournament. Understood. I will take care of it right away. Zhao Qinglong responded respectfully, fully aware of Qin Xian's significance. At this moment, Qin Yu had quietly returned to the Qin estate. He did not use the main entrance. Instead, he scaled the back wall and directly returned to his secluded courtyard. Although he had been followed along the way, those pursuers seemed as naive as children in comparison to his emperor-level experience. With a fortune of spiritual stones now in his possession, it was time to elevate his cultivation. A satisfied smile graced the corners of Qin Yu's mouth as he strode purposefully toward the hidden chamber at the depths of the courtyard. This secret room, which he had unearthed upon his return, was situated in an exceedingly discreet location, making it difficult for outsiders to discover. Inside the chamber, Qin Yu seated himself cross-legged, extracting the myriad spirit stones from his storage bag. In an instant, the entire room was illuminated by the resplendent glow of the spirit stones, and a rich aura of spiritual energy enveloped him. With my current cultivation level, the only way to achieve a significant enhancement in a short span of time is through an immense quantity of spirit stones, Qin Yu mused, as he began to arrange the spirit gathering formation. Soon, a complex array took shape within the chamber, encircling all the spirit stones. Chaos Divine Art, activate, Qin Yu commanded, and the Chaos Divine Art within him commenced its vigorous operation. In a heartbeat, torrents of spiritual energy surged forth from the spirit stones, forming cascading streams that rushed fervently into Qin Yu's body. He felt a slight tremor within, as his meridians and dantian began to endure an overwhelming impact. For an ordinary Qi refining practitioner, such a terrifying influx of spiritual energy would have resulted in immediate catastrophic failure. However, Qin Yu was different. With the aid of the Chaos Divine Cauldron, he could fully accommodate this spiritual energy. Refine it, let me refine it. Qin Yu gritted his teeth and channeled his energy with all his might, swiftly assimilating the influx of spiritual energy. As time slipped by, the spirit stones in the chamber were consumed at a visibly rapid pace. After half a day, Qin Yu abruptly opened his eyes, a glimmer of brilliance flashing within them. He had broken through to the 7th layer of Qi refining. Feeling the surging power within him, a satisfied smile appeared on his lips. In merely half a day, he had ascended from the 6th to the 7th layer of Qi refining. At this moment, 1 million low-grade spirit stones had been entirely refined. This astonishing rate of absorption and refinement would surely leave even foundation establishment practitioners in awe. Qin Yu, brimming with pride, did not cease his efforts. He activated the Chaos Divine Art once more, embarking on the refinement of a second batch of spirit stones. Another half a day passed, and with the refinement of 2 million more spirit stones, Qin Yu's aura underwent yet another transformation. Boom! A surge of even more potent energy erupted from him, causing the entire chamber to tremble slightly. He had reached the 8th layer of Qi refining. Rising slowly to his feet, he relished the tidal wave of power coursing through him. In the span of a single day, he had achieved consecutive breakthroughs of 2 minor realms. Soaring from the 6th to the 8th layer of Qi refining, 3 million spirit stones had exchanged for 2 realms of enhancement. This trade was exceedingly favorable. Gazing at the remaining 7 million spirit stones, Qin Yu had no intention of continuing the refinement. The remaining stones held great potential. They could not all be expended on cultivation. He contemplated, now that I have reached the 8th layer of Qi refining, I am invincible in Qingyuan City below the foundation establishment realm, more than capable of securing the position of family deputy master. Clenching his fists, he felt the surging power within him, radiating confidence. Tomorrow marks the family martial arts competition. It is time for those individuals to witness what true talent truly embodies. As night faded into dawn, the Qin residents buzzed with excitement. Today marked the triennial family martial arts competition, open to all young disciples who had attained the 8th level of Qi refinement and were under the age of 22. Those below the 8th level or above the age limit could only spectate. The martial arts square was already teeming with numerous family members, gathered in small clusters, eagerly discussing the day's contests. Rumor had it that the rewards for this competition were substantial, with prizes for the top 10 competitors. The champion would not only earn the position of junior master, but also receive a foundation establishment pill, a priceless treasure that significantly enhances the chances of breaking through to the foundation establishment stage. Alas, given Qin Haotian's prowess, the first place was essentially predetermined for him. Amidst the chatter, an incongruous figure appeared at the entrance of the square. "Isn't that Qin Yu, the so-called waste?" murmured the crowd. "What brings him here? Does he intend to participate in the competition? How laughable, a universally acknowledged coward daring to join the fray." Their eyes filled with mockery and disdain as they fixated on Qin Yu. With an air of indifference, Qin Yu stepped into the square, seemingly oblivious to the surrounding derision. He completely concealed his aura, rendering his true cultivation level imperceptible to outsiders. "Ah, our family's great hero has graced us with his presence," sneered a voice laced with sarcasm. It was Qin Xiao approaching. "You, a coward who fled from battle, dare to participate in the competition? You'd be better off scurrying back to your corner." Indeed, had it not been for his cowardice, our family would not have fallen to such depths. This craven is nothing but a source of shame for the Qin clan. He shouldn't even be allowed to watch the competition, echoed the disdainful sentiments of the others. In the face of such ridicule, Qin Yu remained calm and replied slowly. The rules of the competition state that anyone above the 8th level of Qi refinement may participate, and I meet that criterion. As for you, Qin Xiao, with your mere 5th level, you lack even the qualifications to join, yet you dare bark at me? Qin Xiao was momentarily taken aback. What do you mean? Are you claiming to have reached the 8th level of Qi refinement? He scoffed. Don't be absurd. I know you're merely at the 6th level. Is that so? A cold smile crept across Qin Yu's lips. Suddenly, a powerful aura of the 8th level of Qi refinement erupted from him. What? The crowd stood in stunned silence, their faces painted with disbelief. 8th level of Qi refinement? How is this possible? Qin Xiao staggered back a few steps, his eyes filled with terror. 2 days ago, you were merely at the 6th level of Qi refinement. How could you possibly ascend to the 8th level in such a short span? This is utterly implausible, absolutely inconceivable. The other disciples shook their heads in disbelief, unable to accept this reality. At that moment, several powerful auras emanated from the distance. It was the elders of the Qin family. Leading them was the esteemed elder Qin Tianba, who, upon sensing the aura surrounding Qin Yu, was momentarily taken aback. The aura of the 8th level of Qi refinement? How could this be? Could he have concealed his true cultivation? A tempest of emotions surged within Qin Tianba, yet he maintained an outward composure. Qin Yu. The aura emanating from you suggests the 8th level of Qi refinement, but this is far too extraordinary, Qin Tianba remarked coldly. I suspect you have practiced some nefarious secret technique to deliberately alter your aura and deceive us all. Indeed, that must be the case. His true cultivation level cannot possibly be the 8th level of Qi refinement. Qin Xiao immediately concurred. Just 2 days ago, he was at the 6th level. How could a useless individual like him achieve 2 breakthroughs in such a short time? Unless he has resorted to malevolent practices to alter his aura, it is utterly impossible for him to exude the aura of the 8th level. Precisely, he must have engaged in some wickedly deceptive technique. His intentions are far from pure. Others chimed in, agreeing that Qin Yu could not have possibly advanced to the 8th level. As the crowd murmured, a voice of authority rang out. Enough. Qin Tian strode forward, revealing himself as Qin Yu's father and the current head of the Qin family. Looking at his son, his eyes were filled with complex emotions, shock, disbelief, and a hint of deeply concealed pride. Father. Qin Yu gazed at the middle-aged man standing before him, his heart stirred. In his memories, this father figure had gone to great lengths to protect the original owner of his body, even graying significantly in the process. Qin Tian turned to face Qin Yu, his gaze a mixture of complexity, yet predominantly resolute in his protective instincts. As long as I am here, no one shall lay a finger on my son. Qin Tianba scoffed, pointing a finger at Qin Yu. Elder brother, you are mistaken. This boy had only reached the 6th level of Qi refinement 2 days prior. Now he exudes the aura of the 8th level. Is this normal? Such an irrational breakthrough can only be explained by practicing sinister blood-burning techniques. If we allow someone who engages in such dark arts to participate in the tournament, it would not only break the rules but also tarnish the reputation of our Qin family, which has endured for a century. Where's the law enforcement hall? Seize this scoundrel at once and strip him of his cultivation to uphold our family's integrity. With Qin Tianba's command, several disciples clad in black from the law enforcement hall charged forward. The surrounding clansmen began to murmur among themselves. The elder is right. Who can achieve 2 levels of advancement in just 2 days? It must be dark sorcery. To win by any means is truly a disgrace to the Qin family. It would be better to eliminate this menace before it leads to greater chaos. Qin Tian's eyes widened furiously as his aura surged, forcing several disciples of the law enforcement hall to stagger back. Who dares? He thundered. Tianba, you incessantly accuse Yuer of practicing dark arts. Do you possess any evidence? To strip someone of their cultivation based solely on conjecture. Do you still regard me as the head of this family? Qin Tianba replied ominously. Evidence? His abnormal cultivation is proof enough. Very well, if you seek evidence, let us consult the spirit testing stone, Qin Tian declared, gesturing towards the massive black stone in the center of the training ground. The spirit testing stone not only measures cultivation levels, but also assesses the purity of one's spiritual energy. Should Yuer be practicing dark arts, his energy would undoubtedly be tainted, possibly even infused with malevolent essence. Conversely, if Yuer's energy is pure, it would affirm that his breakthrough is legitimate. Second brother, do you dare to test? Qin Tianba narrowed his eyes, calculating. 2 breakthroughs in 2 days. There's no way his spiritual energy could be of significant purity. It's likely barely passable. If the purity falls short, I will still have grounds to challenge him. Fine, let us proceed with the test. If it reveals him to be a dark practitioner, do not hold it against me. Elder brother, Qin Tianba scoffed. Qin Yu had remained silent. watching Qin Tianba's antics with the amusement of an observer. Upon hearing about the spirit testing stone, a smirk played at the corners of his mouth. These frogs at the bottom of the well have no comprehension of the profound mysteries of the chaotic divine art. Not only would the finest techniques pale in comparison to the purity of his spiritual energy, even the most elite methods would not measure up to even a fraction of his power. Since his second uncle was so eager to witness the outcome, he would oblige. Pushing aside Qin Tian, Qin Yu strolled towards the spirit testing stone. The crowd parted, their eyes gleaming with schadenfreude, eagerly anticipating his humiliation. Qin Xiao crossed his arms, brimming with arrogance. This waste is doomed. The spirit testing stone never lies. Standing before the spirit testing stone, Qin Yu raised his right hand and casually placed it upon the cold surface. He did not need to exert full force. A mere flicker of ordinary spiritual energy would suffice. Suddenly, the spirit testing stone quivered violently. In the next moment, a blinding golden light shot into the sky, illuminating the entire training ground. The crowd, previously mocking, fell silent as if their throats had been gripped. The stone revealed 4 striking characters. 8th level of Qi refinement. Below the cultivation level, the scale representing spiritual energy purity soared to the top, an indication of legendary supreme purity. Supreme purity? Qin Tianba's eyes nearly bulged from their sockets. What did supreme purity signify? It represented a flawless foundation, devoid of any impurities. It was the epitome of a perfect Tao foundation. Even the late ancestor of the Qin family had only achieved high-grade purity in his time. It was akin to a beggar, accustomed to subsisting on scraps, suddenly producing a feast fit for an emperor. This was utterly absurd. This cannot be. The testing stone must be faulty. Qin Xiao screamed in anguish, utterly unable to accept the reality before him. Qin Yu retracted his hand, dusting off the particles with a nonchalant glance at Qin Tianba. Uncle, do you still wish to waste my cultivation? Qin Tianba's complexion turned ashen, akin to someone who had just received a resounding slap, his skin twitching in response. The evidence lay bare. The purity of the exceptional spiritual energy served as the most definitive proof. The so-called rumors of dark arts crumbled without resistance. Qin Tian's hands trembled with excitement, and his eyes glistened with unshed tears. Good, good, good. Exceptional spiritual energy. Heaven bless the Qin family. He had long been worried about his son's health, but it seemed that not only was his son unharmed, he had instead gained immense fortune amidst adversity. With the testing of the spiritual stone concluded, the martial arts competition officially commenced. Although Qin Yu had dispelled the allegations of practicing dark arts, the majority still suspected he had consumed some rare treasure. While his foundation appeared solid, they doubted his practical combat experience. After all, he had been confined for 5 years. Soon, the first round of the draw was completed. The referee announced loudly, in the first match, Qin Yu versus Qin Gang. Upon hearing this name, the crowd erupted in a stir. Qin Gang was a burly man, at the early stage of the 8th level of Qi refinement, and was Qin Xiao's foremost henchman, notorious for bullying the collateral descendants. A spectacle is about to unfold, they thought. Qin Gang was infamous for his viciousness, and it seemed that Qin Yu's slender frame was destined for trouble. With a sinister grin, Qin Gang leaped onto the stage, brandishing a hefty broadsword, eyeing Qin Yu as if he were a lamb destined for slaughter. Oh, isn't this our cowardly young master? What brings you here, instead of stitching flowers at home? Are you here to meet your demise? Qin Gang swung his massive blade, creating a whistling sound through the air. Don't say I didn't give you a chance. Kneel and bow 3 times to young Master Qin Xiao, and call him grandfather 3 times, and I'll allow you to leave. Otherwise, I won't hesitate to break your legs, so you can crawl back. From the audience, Qin Xiao roared with encouragement. Gongzi, hit him hard. If anything happens, I'll take the blame. Qin Yu stood his ground, hands clasped behind his back. Without even lifting his eyelids, the blade was abruptly severed into 2 pieces. Immediately, an overwhelming force surged through the broken weapon and coursed into Qin Gang. He felt as if he had been struck in the chest by a colossal ancient elephant. Unable to utter a scream, his body flew through the air like a projectile, tracing a graceful parabolic arc. Chapter 10. A chasm of difference with a resounding thud. Qin Gang crashed heavily onto the ground several meters away, landing right at the feet of Qin Tianba, creating a deep crater and sending dust swirling into the air. Qin Gang's eyes rolled back, foam escaping his mouth, as he succumbed to unconsciousness. An eerie silence enveloped the venue. The spectators gaped in disbelief, as though ensnared by a spell. A mere finger? Just a single finger? Was it truly capable of obliterating Qin Gang, who was also at the 8th level of Qi refinement? It had even shattered his blade. Was this still a human being? Qin Yu retracted his finger, idly flicking at his nail, as if he had merely swatted away a fly. He turned his gaze, piercing through the crowd, to the figure seated atop the high platform, Qin Haotian. A cold smile curled at the corners of Qin Yu's lips, his eyes brimming with provocation and disdain. That gaze seemed to convey a message. Prepare yourself. You shall be next. Qin Yu's display had utterly silenced the crowd. The earlier jeers of those calling him a coward had vanished without a trace, replaced by looks of awe and trepidation. This was no mere weakling. He was akin to a human beast of prey. In a nondescript corner of the audience, a middle-aged man wearing a wide-brimmed hat observed the stage intently. This individual was Zhao Qinlong, the head of the city lord's mansion, who had disguised himself to infiltrate the event. At the moment Qin Yu severed the blade with a flick of his finger, Zhao Qinlong's brow furrowed slightly. This calm demeanor, coupled with such pinpoint precision, felt oddly familiar. The enigmatic genius Qin Xiao, who had conquered 21 levels in the ascending tower, had given him a similar impression, though their appearances were different. The essence of their presence seemed to be carved from the same mold. Could it be him? A bold conjecture stirred in Zhao Qinlong's mind. Yet he dared not leap to conclusions without further observation. The first round of eliminations quickly concluded, with Qin Yu advancing without any doubt. As he stepped down from the stage, Qin Bufan rushed over, excitement radiating from his flushed face. Cousin, you're incredible. That Qin gang, who usually struts around so arrogantly, couldn't even withstand a single finger from you. Qin Yu patted Qin Bufan's shoulder and chuckled. It was merely a basic maneuver. There's no need to make a fuss. However, you should be cautious in the upcoming matches. That old codger Qin Tianba will certainly not let this go lightly. Indeed, in the backstage lounge, Qin Tianba's expression was as dark as a storm cloud. Several young contestants from his lineage stood in a line, trembling with trepidation. Useless. You are all a bunch of worthless scum. Qin Tianba shattered the table with a single slap. It was evident that Qin Yu was merely masquerading as a fool while concealing his true strength. If you continue to underestimate him, you shall all be expelled from the family. His gaze, fierce and menacing, swept across the gathered crowd, ultimately settling on a youth clad in white. Qin Han, in the next round, you shall face Qin Yu. I demand that you incapacitate him. Employ any means necessary to force him to reveal his hidden cards, ideally. Leave him permanently disabled. Should any repercussions arise, your second uncle will bear the brunt. A glint of ruthlessness flashed in Qin Han's eyes as he nodded in acknowledgement. Rest assured, second uncle, I have endured enough humiliation at the ascending tower. It's time to unleash my wrath upon this waste of space. I will make him understand what true genius means. Qin Han stood at the pinnacle of Qi refinement, second only to Qin Haotian among the younger generation of the Qin family. He held no doubts about defeating a convict who had only just been released from prison 2 days prior. Soon, the results of the second round of the draw were announced. Qin Yu versus Qin Han. This confrontation ignited the atmosphere in the arena. One was a former young master, now a formidable dark horse making a strong comeback, while the other was the family's acknowledged number 2 genius, a master at the peak of Qi refinement. This was undoubtedly a clash of titans. On the stage, Qin Han brandished a silver long knife, his gaze icy as he fixed it upon Qin Yu. Qin Yu, do not presume that defeating someone like Qin Gang grants you the right to be arrogant. In my eyes, you remain a waste. Today, I shall demonstrate to you the vast chasm that separates our abilities. With that, Qin Han unleashed his full momentum. The oppressive aura of peak Qi refinement surging forth like a tidal wave towards Qin Yu. Ordinary cultivators at the 8th level of Qi refinement would have crumbled beneath such pressure, yet Qin Yu appeared unfazed, even stifling a yawn. Are you finished? If so, let us begin. I have a lunch appointment to keep. Furious at Qin Yu's dismissive demeanor, Qin Han bellowed, wind blade technique. With a mighty roar, he orchestrated a flurry of knife strikes, transforming his long knife into a tempest of blade shadows. Each shadow emitted a piercing howl, enveloping Qin Yu in a storm of lethal intent. This was a high-level martial skill of the Qin family, immensely powerful and insurmountable for ordinary practitioners. The spectators below were fervently cheering. Well done, young Master Qin Han. Eliminate this pretentious fool. This technique is too swift. It is impossible to discern. However, within the heart of the storm of blades, Qin Yu maintained an air of nonchalance, his steps light as he danced like willow catkins in the breeze. With each movement, he narrowly evaded the razor-sharp edges, remaining untouched. Qin Han grew increasingly alarmed with each strike. It felt as though every blow was destined to land, yet somehow, they always fell short. The sensation was akin to firing a cannon at a mosquito, powerful yet utterly ineffective, a source of immense frustration. Damn it! Do you only know how to evade? Qin Han roared, a flicker of madness igniting in his eyes. He suddenly withdrew a crimson elixir from his bosom and swallowed it whole. The explosive Qi pill, capable of significantly enhancing one's spiritual power in a short period, albeit with considerable side effects. In his fervor to triumph, Qin Han disregarded the consequences. You shall perish. The winds surged violently. Qin Han's spiritual energy surged dramatically, and with a fierce swing of his long blade, a colossal azure vortex of spiritual force erupted, bearing the intent to obliterate all in its path, hurtling towards Qin Yu. This strike would daunt even a cultivator at the early stage of foundation establishment. Below, Qin Tian's expression shifted dramatically. "Be careful, you." Faced with this terrifying assault, Qin Yu finally halted. He gazed at the tempestuous vortex with a flicker of disdain in his eyes. "Such flamboyance. It seems your skills are rather limited." Slowly, he unsheathed a rusted iron sword from his waist, an unremarkable blade he had casually found in the storeroom, its edge yet to be sharpened. Yet in his grasp, the sword appeared to be imbued with life. Cloud-flowing sword technique. With a subtle flick of his wrist, he unleashed a seemingly nonchalant strike. There was no earth-shattering roar, nor dazzling brilliance. Only a wisp of sword light, ethereal as smoke, gliding through the air. However, this seemingly feeble strike, upon encountering the ferocious vortex of spiritual energy, sliced through it as effortlessly as a hot knife through butter. The colossal tornado was cleaved in an instant, dissipating into nothingness. The sword light continued its relentless trajectory, piercing through layers of blade shadows. In the next moment, Qin Yu's figure appeared spectrally behind Qin Han. The rusted iron sword rested steadily against Qin Han's throat. The chilling touch jolted Qin Han from his frenzy, cold sweat saturating his back. A mere tremor from Qin Yu's hand would seal his fate. Clang! The long blade slipped from Qin Han's grasp, leaving him in a state of shock. Defeated? He had actually lost. And to a single, overwhelming strike. He hadn't even seen how Qin Yu had wielded his sword. The profound sense of helplessness reminded him of the despair he felt when confronting the high-level phantoms in the Ascension Tower. The arena plunged once more into a deathly silence. All eyes widened in disbelief, as if witnessing a ghost. Qin Han, at the pinnacle of Qi refinement, had resorted to drugs and unleashed a formidable attack, only to be vanquished by a mere rusted sword in a single blow. This world was utterly insane. In the corner, Zhao Qinglong's pupils constricted. His teacup shattered in his grip. Cloud-flowing sword technique. The essence of the sword, the elegance, there could be no mistake. He was indeed the Qin Xian who had traversed the 21st level. A tempest surged within Zhao Qinglong. Who could have imagined that the extraordinary prodigy who had stirred the entire city was, in fact, the despised waste of the Qin family? Were the eyes of the Qin family truly blinded? With such a true dragon at hand, why treat it like mere vermin? On the arena, Qin Yu retracted his iron sword, not even casting a glance at the crumpled Qin Han on the ground. He turned around, his gaze sharp as lightning, piercing directly at Qin Haotian on the high platform. This time, Qin Haotian could no longer remain seated. He slowly rose, for the first time revealing a look of grave concern in his eyes. The two locked eyes from afar, and the air seemed to crackle with tension. Chapter 11. Malicious intent. Very well. A roar, brimming with suppressed rage, shattered the silence. Qin Tian abruptly stood from his chair, trembling with excitement, his eyes reddened. For 5 years, he had endured countless disdain and humiliation to protect the life of this son. His hair had turned gray from worry. Now, witnessing his son's remarkable performance, he could no longer contain himself. My son, Qin Yu, possesses the demeanor of an emperor. Qin Tian's voice cracked with emotion. Although it sounded somewhat exaggerated, none dared to mock him in that moment. After all, what Qin Yu had just displayed was indeed astonishing. Below the arena, several attendants rushed forward in a flurry, lifting the limp and helpless Qin Han away. His eyes were vacant, and he muttered incessantly, "Impossible, this cannot be." Clearly, this once mighty genius had completely shattered in spirit. Observing Qin Han's miserable state, the relatives who had staunchly supported the second uncle began to feel apprehensive. They exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. On the high platform, Qin Haotian still maintained a facade of calm, seated in the main position. Yet, his hands, resting on his knees, clutched the fabric of his robe tightly, knuckles pale from exertion. He could hardly believe that the once insignificant ant he had trampled upon had truly grown to such an extent. That sword strike just now, could he have withstood it? Qin Haotian felt a surge of insecurity, yet he could not show weakness. Humph, he is merely relying on his peculiar agility. If it came to a direct confrontation, he would undoubtedly perish. Qin Haotian let out a cold snort, his voice low yet audible enough for those around him. It seemed a means to bolster his own courage, as well as to reassure others. The next match, the semifinals, Qin Haotian against Qin Xiao. The referee's voice rang out once more. Taking a deep breath, Qin Haotian slowly rose, his toes barely touching the ground. He soared onto the arena like a great rock, his movements graceful, eliciting a wave of applause. His opponent, Qin Xiao, was a disciple from the neutral faction of the family, possessing a 9th-level Qi refinement cultivation, known for his honest and earnest demeanor. Young Master Haotian, I seek your guidance. Qin Xiao said with cupped hands, a hint of nervousness evident in his expression. Qin Haotian's eyes were icy. He desperately needed a crushing victory to restore his authority and intimidate Qin Yu. Guidance. You think you are worthy of that? Qin Haotian had no intention of reciprocating the gesture. Before his words finished echoing, he charged forward. Shattered jade palm. His hands shimmered with a jade-like luster, accompanied by a fierce gust of wind, as he struck directly at Qin Xiao's face. Startled, Qin Xiao hastily raised his arms to block the blow. Crack! The sharp sound of bones fracturing echoed throughout the arena. Qin Xiao let out a pained scream, his arms twisting in an unnatural manner. The force of the strike sent him hurtling backward, crashing heavily against the edge of the arena. Gasp! Qin Xiao spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, his face instantly paling to a ghostly white. Yet, Qin Haotian showed no signs of relenting. He swiftly appeared before Qin Xiao, lifting his foot to stomp mercilessly on Qin Xiao's chest. Ah! Qin Xiao emitted a heart-wrenching cry, unsure how many ribs had broken. This is the consequence of opposing me. Qin Haotian pressed down with force, but his gaze was fixed beyond Qin Xiao, locking onto Qin Yu below, filled with provocation and cruelty. The arena fell into a deathly silence. It was evident to all that Qin Haotian was making an example out of Qin Xiao. Qin Yu watched the scene impassively, yet his eyes gradually turned frigid. To inflict such brutality upon his own kin, Qin Haotian's heart was even more ruthless than he had imagined. Qin Haotian wins. The referee hastily announced the result, fearful that Qin Haotian might deliver a fatal blow. Soon after, the referee glanced at the drawing tube in his hand, his expression peculiar as he declared, due to Qin Han's severe injuries preventing him from participating in the loser's resurrection match, and with an odd number of contestants, Qin Yu receives a bye and advances directly to the finals. At this announcement, the crowd erupted in astonishment. What? He advances straight to the finals? Such extraordinary luck. It seems the heavens are favoring Qin Yu. Qin Tianba nearly spat out a mouthful of blood at the news. He had originally hoped Qin Yu would expend some spiritual energy in the semifinals. He never expected this lad to have such good fortune, effortlessly making it to the finals. This meant Qin Yu would face Qin Haotian in peak condition, right after his previous match. Damn it, how infuriating. Qin Tianba angrily slapped his thigh. After a half-hour intermission, the final match would commence. As the referee's voice faded, the crowd began to buzz with excitement, anticipating the ultimate showdown. With a grim expression, Qin Tianba swiftly approached Qin Haotian, whispering, "Follow me." The father and son made their way to a secluded chamber behind the training grounds. Upon entering, Qin Tianba locked the door with a swift motion, his face contorted into a ghastly visage. "Haotian, you must win this battle. Losing is not an option." Qin Haotian furrowed his brow, replying, "Father, though that boy possesses some peculiar abilities, I am confident." "Confident my foot." Qin Tianba interrupted him harshly. "Can't you see? That boy's strength is unfathomable. Did you truly believe you could withstand that sword strike unscathed?" Qin Haotian fell silent. Truthfully, he had no such assurance. Qin Tianba inhaled deeply, lowering his voice. 5 years ago, we administered slow-acting poison in that boy's meals. Previously, they had conspired to frame him as a deserter, which led to his imprisonment in the celestial dungeon. If he were to ascend as the young master and reclaim power, once the events of that year were unveiled, do you think he would spare us, father and son? In that case, we would be left without a grave. Upon hearing this, Qin Haotian trembled, cold sweat instantly cascading down his back. Indeed, this is a matter of life and death, with no path for retreat. A flicker of ruthlessness flashed in Qin Tianba's eyes as he carefully retrieved a delicate jade box from his robe and slowly opened it. An overwhelming stench of blood immediately filled the entire secret chamber. Inside the jade box lay a dark red pill, seemingly pulsating with flowing blood, an eerie sight to behold. Is this the blood-exploding pill? Qin Haotian's pupils constricted sharply, his voice quivering. Such a pill is forbidden. Once ingested, it ignites all the vital essence within, forcibly elevating one's cultivation by an entire realm for a brief period. It could even momentarily brush against the threshold of foundational establishment. Yet the cost is grievous, 10 years of life forfeited. Indeed, Qin Tianba replied, his expression pained as he gazed upon the pill. This is a life-saving trump card I acquired at great expense from the black market. Haotian, should you find yourself in a losing battle, consume it. As long as you triumph in this match, the position of young master will be yours, and the entire Qin family will belong to us. We can then utilize the clan's resources to slowly restore your health. What is merely a decade of life? Qin Haotian stared at the ominous pill, his throat constricting. He hesitated. This was a gamble with his very life at stake. Chapter 12. The Flowing Cloud Sword Technique. Yet, the scornful gaze of Qin Yu flickered in his mind. along with the image of Qin Yu effortlessly dispatching Qin Han with a single strike. If he chose not to take the risk, he might very well face defeat. Rather than wait for demise, why not seize the chance? A glint of fierce determination ignited in Qin Haotian's eyes as he grasped the blood-exploding pill. Good. He did not swallow it outright, but pressed it beneath his tongue, ready to deliver a lethal blow to Qin Yu at a critical moment. That's the spirit, Qin Tianba said, patting his son's shoulder with a sinister smile. Go forth, incapacitate him, and let him understand who the true master of the Qin family is. Meanwhile, in a shadowy corner of the martial arts arena, the disguised Zhao Qinglong was cracking sunflower seeds, a playful smile gracing his lips. With his foundational cultivation, although he couldn't hear the dialogue in the secret chamber clearly, the furtive actions of the father and son, along with the sudden eruption of bloodlust, could escape others' notice. But not his. The blood-exploding pill, you say? Quite intriguing. Zhao Qinglong stroked his chin, a glimmer of anticipation in his gaze. Qin Xian, facing such a reckless strategy, how will you break the impasse? Do not disappoint me. Otherwise, the gates of the city lord's manor will not stand open for you. Time flew by, and half an hour slipped away in the blink of an eye. As the sun set, the dying light bathed the martial arts arena in a chilling crimson hue. The finals have begun. As the referee's command echoed, the atmosphere in the arena became taut with anticipation. Qin Yu and Qin Haotian ascended the stage simultaneously, standing 10 meters apart, their energies entwining, conjuring a miniature whirlwind that rustled their garments. Qin Haotian gazed at Qin Yu, a cruel smile curling at the corners of his mouth. Qin Yu, I never expected you to reach this point. However, your fortune has run its course. A wretched insect crawling out from a filthy prison dares to covet the position of the young master? Today, I shall demonstrate to you that some disparities cannot be bridged by mere luck. He attempted to provoke Qin Yu with his taunts, aiming to disrupt his mental focus. Nevertheless, Qin Yu merely regarded him with the detached amusement one might reserve for a jester's antics. Once Qin Haotian finished his tirade, Qin Yu replied coolly, your prattle is tiresome. Let us proceed to the fight. You. Qin Haotian choked on his words, his face turning ashen, fury bubbling to the surface. Very well, since you seek your own demise. I shall oblige. With a thunderous roar, Qin Haotian ceased his verbal sparring and unleashed his peak chi with unbridled ferocity. With a flick of his wrist, a long sword, entirely jade green and exuding a chilling aura, materialized in his grasp. It was the Qin Shi sword. Gasps arose from the audience. This was an exquisite mundane sword, second only to spiritual weapons, capable of slicing through iron as if it were mud, its power formidable. The fact that Qin Haotian had resorted to such a treasure signified his earnest intent to win. The enhancement provided by a top-tier mundane weapon was immense, enough to elevate Qin Haotian's offensive capability by over 30%. In stark contrast, Qin Yu remained armed with a rusted, battered iron sword salvaged from a storeroom. The disparity in their armaments resembled a beggar challenging a fully armored general. Die! Qin Haotian bellowed, thrusting the Qin Shi sword with ferocious intent. The serpent strikes. The sword's trajectory mimicked a venomous snake, darting towards Qin Yu's throat with an uncanny precision. The speed of the strike was akin to lightning, the air splitting with a sharp whistle. Yet, in the face of this lethal assault, Qin Yu did not so much as flutter an eyelid. He stood resolutely, his feet firmly planted. It was only when the blade was a mere 3 inches from his throat that he finally moved. There was no flourish, no extravagant display, merely a simple elevation of his hand and a swing of his sword. The sound of metal clashing rang out, crisp and clear. The rusted iron sword struck the spine of the Qin Shi sword with astonishing accuracy. Qin Haotian felt a jolt in his wrist, as his once fatal strike was deflected with unexpected force. How could this be? His heart raced with astonishment, yet he reacted swiftly, shifting tactics. The frenzied dance of the serpent. The Qin Shi sword transformed into a whirlwind of sword shadows, akin to countless venomous snakes assailing Qin Yu from all directions, sealing off every avenue of retreat. Still, Qin Yu appeared as though he had yet to awaken from slumber. The rusty sword in his hand appeared to move slowly, yet in reality, it was swift beyond measure. The rapid clashing sounds resonated like raindrops upon banana leaves. No matter how intricate or ferocious Qin Haotian's swordplay was, it was effortlessly parried by that rusted blade. Qin Yu moved about as though he were leisurely strolling through his own garden, exuding an air of composure and mastery. At times, he even intentionally exposed a flaw, enticing Qin Haotian to attack, only to effortlessly counter the assault. As time passed, the arena was filled with the flicker of sword shadows. Qin Haotian, akin to a frenzied dog, wielded his azure serpent sword in a suffocating barrage. Each strike aimed for Qin Yu's vital points, fierce and unyielding. Yet the outcome? Not even a corner of Qin Yu's garment was grazed. Instead, the precious azure serpent sword emitted mournful cries, Clang, clang, clang. After several more clashes, Qin Haotian felt a numbing in his wrist and pain in his palm. When he focused his gaze, his heart sank. His exquisite sword, capable of slicing through iron, now bore several tiny chips along its blade. In stark contrast, Qin Yu's rusty sword was merely shedding a bit of rust, completely unscathed. How could this be? This was utterly inconceivable. Qin Haotian's mentality began to falter. The audience, not blind to the spectacle, erupted in murmurs of disdain. Is this truly the Qin family's premier genius? After a lengthy bout, he hadn't even touched his opponent? That azure serpent sword is a treasure, yet it has been marred by a mere rusty sword. What a disgrace. It seems Qin Haotian is nothing more than a facade. All his boastful proclamations fall flat in the face of Qin Yu, a supposed waste. These murmurs pricked at Qin Haotian's ears like needles. His face flushed crimson, his eyes bloodshot, and his breath became frantic. Silence. All of you be silent, he bellowed. Yet instead of halting, he launched into an even more frenzied assault. However, his strikes were chaotic and riddled with openings. Qin Yu observed this with a flicker of impatience in his eyes. The game of pretend play with this child must come to an end. Have you had enough? Qin Yu coldly uttered those 4 words. In the next moment, his aura transformed. The previously languid demeanor vanished, replaced by an overwhelming pressure as steady as a mountain. The rusty sword trembled, a faint golden spiritual energy enveloping its blade. The once dim and tarnished sword now resonated with a deep, draconic roar. Since you are so fond of swordplay, allow me to demonstrate what true swordsmanship entails. With a flick of his wrist, the momentum shifted dramatically. No longer on the defensive, he transitioned to an aggressive stance. The flowing cloud sword technique evolved into a new form, clouds parting mountains and rivers. This strike bore no ornate sword shadows, only raw power and velocity. The sword light flashed like a golden lightning bolt, instantly tearing through Qin Haotian's defenses. Roll, Qin Yu commanded in a low voice. The rusted sword, imbued with tremendous force, struck fiercely against the blade of the azure serpent sword. A resounding clang reverberated throughout the arena, sparks flying in all directions. Qin Haotian felt an overwhelming surge of power crashing upon him, rendering him utterly defenseless. A cry of anguish escaped his lips as his hand was violently torn apart, blood splattering forth. The azure serpent sword slipped from his grasp, soaring through the air in a parabolic arc before embedding itself with a soft thud into the stone pillar at the edge of the arena. The blade trembled violently, emitting a mournful hum. Meanwhile, Qin Haotian appeared utterly disheveled, having been knocked back repeatedly by the immense force, shattering the stones beneath his feet. He staggered backward, 1 step, 2 steps, 3, retreating a full dozen paces until he precariously teetered at the edge of the platform, barely managing to stabilize himself. His hair was disheveled, his clothing in tatters, and blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. Gone was the image of the once proud young master. A profound silence enveloped the crowd, all eyes wide with disbelief as they beheld the figure standing defiantly in the center of the arena, rusted sword in hand. Is this truly the extent of Qin Yu's power now? Qin Tian, overwhelmed with excitement, pounded his thigh. Were it not for his role as head of the family, he would have rushed forward to embrace his son in joyous celebration. Qin Yu sheathed his sword, casting a cold, indifferent gaze towards Qin Haotian in the distance. His expression was one of sheer contempt, akin to a person dismissing a mere fly. You have lost, he declared, his voice calm and devoid of emotion. Surrender your position as young master, and then leave. The nonchalant tone of his words was more painful than a physical blow to Qin Haotian. Bowing his head, his body trembled violently. Lost. I have lost. To a waste who has languished in a dungeon for 5 years? To a coward who once knelt before me, begging for mercy? No, I refuse to accept this. I am the foremost genius of the Qin Clan, the future head. How could I possibly lose? Qin Haotian suddenly lifted his head, his eyes a bloodshot crimson, his visage twisted like a demon emerging from the depths of hell. I have not lost. I am the unrivaled genius of the Qin family, he roared, his voice echoing with a savage ferocity. Qin Yu, you bastard, you worthless fool. How dare you triumph over me? How dare you? His primal scream pierced the air, a chilling and harrowing sound. Below the stage, Qin Tianba observed this spectacle with a glint of malice in his eyes. He understood that his son had been driven to a desperate juncture. If he did not fight with all his might, his life would be irrevocably ruined. Concealed within the folds of his sleeve, his hand made a subtle gesture. Qin Haotian caught sight of his father's signal, and the madness in his eyes intensified. He abruptly thrust his hand into his mouth, forcefully pressing against his tongue. Crack! The dark red pill hidden beneath his tongue shattered between his teeth. A pungent, bloody, and violent surge of medicinal power surged down his throat and into his belly. Boom! In an instant, A nauseating wave of bloody energy erupted from within Qin Haotian's body. His skin instantaneously flushed a deep crimson, reminiscent of a boiled lobster. Veins protruded across his face, neck, and arms like writhing worms, creating a grotesque and terrifying visage. The once lethargic aura surged violently, akin to a rocket propelling skyward. The bottleneck of his qi refinement had loosened. Boom. Another muffled explosion reverberated. A whirlwind of crimson energy enveloped Qin Haotian, sweeping away the surrounding debris. This oppressive force had transcended the realm of qi refinement, reaching the threshold of foundational establishment. Although this surge was artificially induced through medicinal means, its terrifying power was undeniably real. The young disciples in close proximity turned pale, trembling in fear. What is this? Such a frightening presence. How did Qin Haotian suddenly become so formidable? Something is amiss. He appears to be possessed by madness. On the high platform, Qin Tian's expression changed dramatically as he discerned the underlying issue. The blood explosion pill. Qin Tianba, you beast. Qin Tian slammed his hand on the table, his fury igniting. This is merely an internal competition, and you dare to administer such a life-shortening forbidden drug to Haotian? This is cheating. Someone immediately halt the competition and rush to save Qin Yu. Qin Tian bellowed, preparing to dash off the platform to rescue his son. A half-step foundational madman is not something a qi refiner can withstand. However, just as he moved, a shadow appeared like a specter, blocking his path. It was none other than Qin Tianba, wearing a brazen and sinister smile. Brother, why the haste? The competition has not yet concluded. If you intervene, it would violate clan regulations. Qin Tian's eyes reddened with urgency as he struck towards Qin Tianba. Get out of my way. Are you intent on harming you? Qin Tianba sidestepped the blow, refraining from retaliation, firmly obstructing Qin Tian's advance. Brother, such is the nature of martial contests. Injuries are inevitable. Besides, the clan rules do not prohibit the consumption of pills. This is Haotian's opportunity, his trump card. How can it be deemed cheating? If you descend now, it would be tantamount to admitting Qin Yu's defeat, and the position of young master would rightfully belong to Haotian. Qin Tianba's words were utterly shameless. Yet they effectively cornered Qin Tian. While the two brothers were embroiled in their struggle, the situation on the arena had reached a life-and-death juncture. Qin Haotian had completely lost his reason, his mind fixated on a singular thought: to annihilate Qin Yu, to shred the one who had brought him such humiliation into pieces. A primal roar erupted from Qin Haotian, unrecognizable as human. With a powerful stomp, he leapt into the air, his entire being enveloped in swirling blood energy. Resembling a bloodthirsty demon, Qin Yu, prepare to meet your demise. He bellowed, raising his right hand high above, then crashing it down. A massive blood-colored hand, as large as a millstone, instantly coalesced from the swirling blood energy. With a suffocating, blood-chilling aura and the terrifying pressure of a half-step foundation establishment, a formidable strike descended upon Qin Yu's head. Should this blow land, it would obliterate not just a person, but even a steel plate would be reduced to mere fragments. It was over. Qin Yu was doomed. Gasps of horror erupted from the audience, many unable to bear the sight and closing their eyes in despair. Qin Xiao watched from below, enthralled, clenching his fists and shouting, "Fifth brother, crush him, turn him into pulp." Faced with a blow capable of annihilating any qi refining practitioner, Qin Yu remained steadfast, neither dodging nor displaying panic. The fierce wind tousled his hair, but could not disturb the tranquility in his eyes. He gazed at the frenzied Qin Haotian above, a faint smirk curling at the corners of his mouth, a look akin to an emperor observing mere ants. Imbued with a hint of pity but predominantly disdain. To risk one's life for victory? Alas, borrowed strength is ultimately an illusion. If you wish to perish, I shall oblige. Qin Yu thought, shaking his head. In the next instant, deep within his dantian, the ancient, enigmatic Chaos Divine Cauldron trembled violently. A surge of pure, boundless chaotic spiritual energy flooded his being instantaneously. This time, Qin Yu no longer suppressed his cultivation. The peak of the 8th layer of qi refining erupted with unrestrained vigor. Though his realm fell short of Qin Haotian, the quality of his spiritual energy surpassed the chaotic blood essence of his opponent by countless magnitudes, akin to the distinction between refined gold and a heap of mud. Slowly, Qin Yu raised his hand, choosing not to draw the rusted sword at his waist. Engaging such mindless brute force with a sword seemed overly cumbersome. It was far more satisfying to shatter it with his fists. He casually thrust the rusted sword aside, clenched his right fist tightly, and grounded himself. A fundamental boxing technique surfaced in his mind, but under the Emperor's enlightenment, it was enough to transmute decay into the miraculous. Mountain-crushing fist. Qin Yu uttered the word softly. His right fist surged upward with ferocity. There were no extravagant lights or grandiose displays, only the simplicity of an unadorned punch. Yet, at the moment of impact, the surrounding air seemed to compress to its utmost, releasing a deep, thunderous roar. A golden fist imprint shot forth, swelling against the wind, imbued with an unstoppable, earth-shattering momentum. Colliding fiercely with the descending crimson giant hand, a clash of titans ensued, unyielding on both sides. Boom! The sound reverberated like thunder in the ears of the onlookers. The ground of the arena quaked violently. At the center of the platform, the golden fist imprint and the blood-red giant hand collided with ferocious intensity. Two distinctly different forces devoured and compressed one another in a chaotic frenzy. Following this, a terrifying shockwave erupted from the two, sweeping outward in all directions. The bluestone slabs of the arena shattered instantaneously, transforming into countless shards that shot forth like arrows. Dust clouds billowed, swiftly engulfing the figures of Qin Yu and Qin Haotian. Retreat quickly. The audience below was left pale with fear, hastily retreating, terrified of being caught in the aftermath. Qin Tian forcefully pushed aside Qin Tianba, his gaze fixed intently on the epicenter of the swirling dust, his heart nearly leaping from his chest. Even Qin Tianba, startled by the commotion, soon broke into a cold smirk. Humph, with a strike from half a step into Foundation establishment, that boy is undoubtedly doomed. Even if he survives, he will be left a cripple. The dust billowed, obscuring the sky. Gradually, the vast cloud of dust began to dissipate. Everyone craned their necks, fixating on the center of the arena, not daring to breathe a word. Who emerged victorious from that earth-shattering blow? Was it the drug-fueled, half-step Foundation establishment Qin Haotian? Or the so-called waste, Qin Yu, who always seemed to create miracles? A gust of wind swept through, carrying away the last remnants of dust, revealing the true state of the arena. The entire venue fell into a profound silence. Then came a synchronized gasp of astonishment. In the center of the stage, Qin Yu remained poised, his stance unwavering. He stood tall like a pine tree, his azure robe billowing in the wind, devoid of even a single wrinkle. Even his dark hair was impeccably arranged. It seemed as though the cataclysmic strike had merely tickled him. Opposite him, the once arrogant and boastful Qin Haotian now knelt on the ground, his right arm contorted at a grotesque angle. Bone fragments protruded through the torn flesh, drenched in blood. He resembled a heap of mud, trembling uncontrollably. His once fearsome visage had turned as pale as a sheet, his eyes bulging as if they might pop out. He emitted strange, incoherent sounds, unable to utter a complete sentence. Defeated, and it was a crushing defeat. After consuming a longevity-shortening forbidden drug to forcibly elevate himself to half-step Foundation establishment, he failed to withstand even a single punch from Qin Yu. Is this what you call half-step Foundation establishment? Qin Yu slowly withdrew his fist, looking down at the prostrate Qin Haotian with a gaze as indifferent as one might reserve for a dead dog. So weak, utterly feeble. As Qin Haotian absorbed these soul-piercing words, anger surged within him. With a violent cough, he expelled a mouthful of black blood mixed with internal organ fragments, his eyes rolling back as he succumbed to unconsciousness. The explosive blood pill not only failed to secure him victory, but also wreaked havoc on his body. Coupled with the domineering energy contained in Qin Yu's punch, it shattered his meridians entirely. His dantian was riddled with cracks, and spiritual energy was leaking uncontrollably. Ruined. Once hailed as the foremost prodigy of the Qin family, and a beacon of hope for countless individuals, Qin Haotian had been reduced to a being inferior even to an ordinary person. Haotian. Below, Qin Tianba let out a heart-wrenching wail. He rushed onto the stage like a madman, cradling his unconscious son in his arms. With a sweep of divine perception, Qin Tianba's body suddenly froze. His meridians were severed, and his dantian shattered. There was no hope for recovery. Ah! Qin Tianba howled to the heavens, his eyes burning crimson, resembling a beast driven to madness. He abruptly turned his gaze, fixing it on Qin Yu with a look of malice that seemed almost palpable. You little beast! How dare you cripple my son? How dare you? How dare you? Qin Tianba's voice was hoarse and grating, akin to a vengeful spirit demanding retribution. In the face of this predatory gaze, Qin Yu merely smiled faintly, unperturbed. Your words are quite amusing, second uncle. Just moments ago, when you sought to kill me on that stage, why did you not call for a halt? Is it permissible for your son to commit murder while I am barred from defending myself? The fault lies not with me, but with your own inadequacy. How wonderfully poetic, self-inflicted retribution. In a fit of rage, Qin Tianba laughed bitterly, his entire aura erupting with uncontrollable spiritual energy. The terrifying pressure characteristic of a foundational stage expert was unleashed without reservation, encompassing the entire martial arena. Since you have crippled my son, you shall pay with your life. Die. Qin Tianba had completely lost his sanity. A singular thought consumed him: to rend this little beast into 1,000 pieces. With a flourish of his hand, A large seal, dark as ink, materialized from thin air. The moment it appeared, the temperature plummeted several degrees, as a chilling and ominous aura spread throughout the space. "Black Sha Seal," cried out the knowledgeable elders in the audience, their voices filled with terror. This was Qin Tianba's personal low-grade spiritual artifact, his most formidable trump card. Once summoned, its power was sufficient to obliterate opponents of the same tier, and Qin Yu was merely at the Qi refining stage. This was a call for total annihilation. "Tianba, how dare you?" On the high platform, Qin Tian's expression contorted in disbelief. He had not anticipated that Qin Tianba would genuinely dare to strike down a junior in such a public forum. Desperately, he attempted to channel his spiritual energy to rush in and provide aid, but the distance was too great. The assault from a foundational stage expert was alarmingly swift, closing the gap in an instant. "You little beast, descend into hell and repent for my son's sake." Qin Tianba sneered, as the Black Sha Seal expanded in his grasp, transforming into a small mountain of darkness. With an overwhelming aura of destruction, it hurtled toward Qin Yu's head. Should this strike land, Qin Yu would undoubtedly be reduced to mere pulp. As this lethal blow approached, Qin Yu's pupils constricted slightly. Yet, contrary to what the onlookers expected, he did not panic. Instead, a glimmer of cold light flickered in the depths of his gaze. Chapter 15. The Lord of the City takes notice indeed. A mid-foundational stage expert was formidable. Presently, Qin Yu was no match for a direct confrontation, yet he possessed his own hidden trump cards. Within his dantian, the dormant Chaos Divine Cauldron seemed to sense its master's peril, beginning to tremble violently. An ancient and profound source of power was brewing within. As long as Qin Yu willed it, he could detonate this source of power at any moment, though the price was a severe injury requiring half a year's recovery. This old dog should not expect to survive. Just as Qin Yu prepared to engage in a desperate struggle, an unexpected turn of events occurred. Whoosh! A figure clad in azure materialized before Qin Yu like a specter, moving with such swiftness that not even an afterimage could be discerned. In the face of the formidable black seal descending with immense force, the azure figure merely raised a hand with nonchalance. The hand was fair and elongated, seemingly devoid of strength. Subsequently, it waved casually, akin to shooing away an annoying fly. "Begone." This simple yet authoritative utterance resonated with explosive clarity in everyone's ears. Boom. That seemingly insurmountable black mass was effortlessly cast aside by a gentle yet boundless force. Clang. The black seal crashed into a distant wall, its brilliance instantly dimming, clearly suffering significant damage. Puff. With the damage to his primary spiritual weapon, Qin Tianba felt as though struck by lightning. He was propelled backwards several meters by the force of the backlash, his feet carving deep trenches into the ground before he barely regained his balance. A mouthful of fresh blood erupted forth, his complexion turning ashen. The arena fell into a profound silence. All present gazed in disbelief at the figure that had suddenly appeared on the stage. One strike, merely a wave of the hand. Had it truly made the foundational cultivator Qin Tianba cough up blood? What kind of power was this? Qin Yu also abandoned any thoughts of summoning the Chaos Divine Cauldron. Observing the azure-robed middle-aged man standing before him, a playful smile curled at the corners of his mouth. He recognized this individual as the steward he had encountered outside the Heavenly Ascension Tower. More accurately, he was Zhao Qinglong, a supervisor from the City Lord's mansion. Who dares to thwart my plans?" Qin Tianba shouted, clutching his chest, a mix of shock and fury in his voice. In that fleeting moment, he felt as though he had collided with a mountain, the overwhelming sense of powerlessness instilling a deep-seated fear within him. The azure figure slowly turned, hands clasped behind his back, regarding Qin Tianba with cold indifference. "Elder Qin, what great authority you wield. If the younger generation falters, must the older generation dig up ancestors from their graves to assist? At your age, have you truly lived long enough to be a dog?" This scathing remark was delivered with unabashed fervor, showing no mercy. Upon recognizing the face of the newcomer, Qin Tianba's previously furious expression froze, replaced by a palpable fear and disbelief. "Supervisor Zhao? How could it be you?" The Qin family members below also erupted into a clamor. Zhao Qinglong, a prominent figure in Qin Yuan City, as a supervisor of the City Lord's mansion and a formidable cultivator in the late foundational stage. He represented the authority of the City Lord himself. In ordinary circumstances, such a prominent figure would command the utmost respect, even from the head of the Qin family. Yet today, he has unexpectedly appeared here, and judging by his demeanor, he is clearly protecting Qin Yu. A sense of foreboding surged within Qin Tianba, causing his heart to sink. He forced a smile, more ghastly than tears, and clasped his hands, saying, "Director Zhao, this is a matter concerning my family. This wretched child has ruthlessly harmed my son." "Silence." Zhao Qinglong interrupted him, his gaze as cold as steel. In a contest of martial prowess, fists and feet are blind, and life and death are fated. When your son ingested forbidden substances with the intent to kill Qin Yu, why did you not deem him ruthless? Now that he has lost, you wish to vent your anger by seeking blood? Do you think the rules of Qin Yuan City are mere trifles? Qin Tianba was rendered speechless, his face turning a deep shade of crimson. Reluctantly, he protested. But this is ultimately a family affair. Director Zhao's intervention seems rather unwarranted. With a cold laugh, Zhao Qinglong stepped forward. Suddenly, a terrifying pressure, magnitudes greater than that of Qin Tianba, erupted forth, nearly forcing him to his knees. Pointing at Qin Yu behind him, Zhao's voice boomed across the arena. Qin Yu is a prodigy favored by my lord the city lord. His excellency has personally decreed his cultivation. Anyone who dares to harm him becomes an enemy of the city lord's estate, an enemy of his excellency. Qin Tianba, do you wish to test this? These words detonated like heavy bombs amidst the crowd, leaving everyone in stunned silence. A prodigy favored by the city lord? A personal decree from his excellency? When did Qin Yu manage to secure such powerful backing? In Qin Yuan City, the city lord's estate is supreme. Even the 4 great families combined are but playthings in the hands of the city lord. With such a status, not even Qin Tianba, or a golden core cultivator, would dare to lay a finger on him. The elders and stewards who once considered aligning themselves with Qin Tianba now turned pale, cold sweat streaming down their faces. They exchanged fearful glances, each recognizing the terror in the other's eyes. Subsequently, they instinctively retreated a few steps, creating distance from Qin Tianba, fearful of incurring the wrath of the city lord's estate. This is the harsh reality. When the walls crumble, everyone turns against you, observing the betrayal of those around him. And the formidable Zhao Qinglong, Qin Tianba recognized that the tide had turned. The opportunity for vengeance had slipped away. If he stubbornly pursued this matter, he might find himself in peril. Grinding his teeth in frustration, he shot a venomous glance at Qin Yu, muttering, "The mountains remain unchanged, and the waters flow on. We shall see what the future holds." With that, he hoisted the limp form of Qin Haotian, resembling a lifeless dog, and fled the arena in disgrace. His once imposing presence now reduced to a pitiful shadow of the esteemed elder he once was. With the departure of Qin Tianba, this farce finally settled into silence. Qin Tian, regaining his composure, hurriedly ascended the stage. He first anxiously examined Qin Yu's body, and upon confirming there were no injuries, he let out a long sigh of relief. Subsequently, Qin Tian deeply bowed to Zhao Qinglong, expressing heartfelt gratitude for his assistance. Zhao Qinglong waved his hand, retracting his imposing aura, and a gentle smile graced his face. He turned to Qin Yu, his gaze imbued with admiration and an unspoken understanding. "Young friend Qin Yu, I trust you were not frightened?" Qin Yu regarded the middle-aged man, who had just exuded an overwhelming presence, but now wore a smile. He nodded slightly and respectfully cupped his hands, saying, "Thank you, Senior Zhao, for your timely intervention." His demeanor was neither obsequious in its surprise nor arrogant in youthful bravado. This calm composure only intensified Zhao Qinglong's appreciation. Truly, one who could conquer the 21st level was exceptional. Such temperament alone set him far apart from his peers. "It was merely a trifling effort," Zhao Qinglong remarked, patting Qin Yu on the shoulder, lowering his voice. "The city lord has taken a keen interest in you. Do visit my residence sometime." With that, he made no further delay, vanishing in an instant. The aura of a master was unmistakable. Once Zhao Qinglong departed, the atmosphere in the martial arena became fervent. Qin Tian stood at the center of the stage, surveying the myriad expressions of his clansmen below. He straightened his posture and announced loudly, "I declare that the champion of this martial arts competition is Qin Yu. From this day forth, he shall resume his position as the young head of the family. All core family resources shall be under his purview." In that moment, no one dared to voice any dissent. Long live the young head of the family. I knew he was wronged. How could such a prodigious talent possibly be a coward? That punch just now was magnificent, truly worthy of an emperor's might. Anyone who dares speak ill of the young head of the family will have me to answer to first. Those who had previously mocked and insulted Qin Yu now flushed with embarrassment, scrambling to the front to curry favor. Their sycophantic expressions belied their earlier contempt, revealing the fickleness of human nature, ever inclined to bow to power. Standing atop the platform, Qin Yu observed the rapid transformations of these individuals with a faint smile. Though a chilling emptiness lurked in his eyes, their flattery held no value for him. He sought not their approval, but rather to reclaim his former glory, to exact vengeance upon those 10 emperors who had beset him. The Qin family of Qin Yuan City was merely the first stepping stone on his path of resurgence. Extraordinary. Qin Yu suddenly spoke. Amidst the throng, Qin Bufan momentarily stood in stunned silence before dashing forward in a surge of excitement. "Cousin, I am here." Qin Yu casually retrieved a storage pouch from within his robe and tossed it towards him. It contains 1,000,000 spirit stones. Use it for your cultivation. I shall appoint the chief steward of the Qin family, and anyone who dares to disobey shall be cast aside. A collective gasp echoed through the crowd. 1,000,000 spirit stones? Casually bestowed. Such extravagant generosity was utterly astonishing. Envious glances filled the eyes of those present, all wishing they were the fortunate recipient of the storage pouch. With trembling hands, Qin Bufan clutched the pouch, tears glistening in his eyes. Brother. Enough of the tears, Qin Yu interjected, waving his hand dismissively, his gaze drifting towards the horizon, where the direction of the sky prison lay. With the troublesome flies within the family eliminated, it was time to settle old scores. The one who poisoned me, and the shadowy figure behind the plot to frame me as a deserter. Are you prepared? Qin Yu mused inwardly, although the tumult of the martial arts tournament had subsided. The tremors within the Qin residence were only just beginning. Qin Yu did not indulge in the euphoria of victory. He understood that vanquishing a single Qin Haotian was merely the first step in his quest for vengeance. To restore this crumbling family to its former glory, a thorough cleansing was imperative. In the council hall, the atmosphere was oppressive. Qin Yu sat poised in the position of the young master, holding a teacup delicately, skimming off the foam. Below him, the stewards and managers stood with bowed heads, not daring to breathe, particularly those who had once clung to Qin Tianba. Exploiting the collateral branches without mercy, now trembled, their legs shaking, cold sweat soaking their backs. Qin Yu called softly. A corpulent, middle-aged steward jolted at the sound and fell to his knees with a thud. Young master, I am here. Qin Yu sipped his tea without raising his eyes. As the overseer of family affairs, for the past 3 years, you have colluded with your uncle's faction, embezzling over 10,000,000 spirit stones from the family. You have withheld cultivation resources from the collateral disciples, resulting in the crippling of 3 due to lack of medicinal aid. How shall we reckon this account? Qin Fu, terrified beyond measure, prostrated himself. His Qin Yu's gaze swept across the entire hall, ultimately resting upon Qin Bufan, who stood in the corner. Without hesitation, Qin Bufan stepped forward, his expression brimming with excitement. From this day forth, you shall serve as the esteemed steward of the Qin family. You are entrusted with the complete management of the Internal Affairs Bureau, including all accounts and personnel adjustments. Retrieve all the grievances you and our collateral relatives have endured. Should anyone dare to oppose, let them seek me out. Qin Bufan's eyes glistened with tears as he knelt heavily, bowing his head in gratitude. Thank you, cousin. I shall devote myself wholeheartedly and ensure that I bring no shame upon you. This show of both benevolence and authority effectively quelled the gathering. Those who had been indecisive now clearly understood the shift in power. The fortunes of the Qin family had indeed changed. Once the trivial matters were settled, night had fallen. Qin Yu dismissed the crowd and made his way alone to the study in the rear courtyard. The study was brightly lit. His father, Qin Tian, sat at the desk, poring over a ledger with a furrowed brow, heaving heavy sighs. Upon hearing footsteps, Qin Tian looked up, and his troubled expression instantly transformed into one of relief upon seeing his son. Yuer has arrived. Please, take a seat. Qin Yu pulled out a chair and sat down. His heart stirred as he noticed the new streaks of white in his father's hair. Was father still troubled by the family's finances? Qin Tian let out a bitter laugh and pushed the ledger aside. Indeed, while you triumphed in the martial contest, these past years have seen Qin Tianba deplete our resources. The spiritual stones in the treasury are nearly exhausted, and the mines under our control are on the verge of ceasing production due to pressure from the other 3 great families. Moreover, even though you emerged victorious, Qin Tianba will certainly not relent. He has been entrenched in family affairs for many years, with numerous supporters. If matters escalate. Suddenly, Qin Tian was seized by a violent cough. He quickly covered his mouth with a handkerchief, his face flushing red as veins bulged on his forehead. Qin Yu's gaze sharpened. Something about this cough seemed amiss. It did not resemble a mere common cold. Rather, it suggested internal damage. Father, let me see, Qin Yu insisted, reaching out to grasp Qin Tian's wrist. It's just an old ailment. Nothing to worry about. Qin Tian replied with a smile. It's merely a consequence of excessive worry over the years. Qin Yu remained silent. A thread of pure chaotic spiritual energy extended from his fingertips into Qin Tian's body. As he probed, his expression darkened. A chilling light flashed in his eyes. Poison, moreover. It was the same insidious chronic poison that had afflicted his own body in the past. However, the toxins within his father had accumulated even deeper, eroding his very marrow and viscera. This poison lay dormant, causing only a sense of weakness and stagnation in cultivation. Yet, should it erupt, it would lead to sudden death, beyond the reach of divine intervention. What a heartless scheme from Qin Tianba. Qin Yu released his grip, his voice icy and piercing. Not only do they wish to eliminate me, but they also aim to quietly bring about your demise. They intend for us, father and son, to vacate our positions. Qin Tian was momentarily taken aback, but his expression swiftly morphed into one of horror. Are you suggesting that I have been poisoned? Qin Yu nodded solemnly. Father, who has been responsible for regulating your health these past 5 years? Qin Tian pondered deeply, and his complexion paled instantly. It was Master Qin Dan. 5 years ago. Due to your matter, I was afflicted with internal injuries, and Qin Tianba introduced me to this Master Qin. He claimed to be a renowned physician he met outside. And for these years, I have relied on him for my prescriptions. I have regarded him as a benefactor, never suspecting. Qin Tian's fist crashed down on the table, his eyes brimming with regret and fury. I have invited a wolf into my home. I have truly been blind. Qin Yu placed a reassuring hand on his father's shoulder, signaling him to remain calm. It is not too late to realize this now. Father, take a deep breath and focus. I will now expel the poison from your body. Qin Tian was taken aback. Expel the poison? This toxin has penetrated the marrow. Even a second-grade alchemist may not be able to resolve it. Qin Yu smiled faintly, exuding an air of formidable confidence. Such a trivial poison is hardly worth concern. I am your son. Would I ever harm you? With that, Qin Yu ceased further conversation. Rising to his feet, he extended his right hand, fingers poised like a sword. With a brilliant golden light emanating from his fingertips, the chaotic divine technique activated, invoking the Tai divine needle. Though lacking silver needles, the transformation of chaotic spiritual energy into needles proved even more effective. Bear with the pain. As his words fell, Qin Yu's fingers danced like phantoms, tapping on several key acupoints along Qin Tian's body. With each tap, a stream of golden spiritual energy surged into Qin Tian. He felt a warm flow coursing through him, swiftly followed by excruciating pain, as if countless ants gnawed at his bones. In less than the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, Qin Tian suddenly opened his mouth. A large spurt of pitch-black, viscous blood erupted forth, landing squarely on the stone tiles beneath him. The black blood possessed a potent corrosive quality, immediately etching a deep pit into the hard stone, releasing a foul-smelling white smoke. Qin Tian gazed at the black blood pooling on the ground, drawing in a sharp breath. If this had remained within him, he surely would not survive the year. After expelling this toxic blood, Qin Tian felt a remarkable lightness throughout his body. The oppressive heaviness that had plagued his chest for years vanished instantaneously, making his breathing significantly easier. To his astonishment, the bottleneck he had faced at the mid-foundation stage for years seemed to show signs of loosening. Incredible. Truly incredible. Qin Tian looked at Qin Yu with awe, his eyes filled with disbelief. When did you acquire such medical skills? Qin Yu handed his father a handkerchief. Fabricating a casual lie. I learned from an elder while in the dungeon. Father, for now, do not disclose that the poison within you has been resolved. Qin Tian, being a seasoned veteran, immediately grasped his son's meaning. Are you willing to play into my hands? Qin Yu nodded, a cold smile gracing his lips. Since Qin Tianba believes your time is short, let us put on a performance for him. Only by making him feel secure in his victory will he reveal his true nature. When the time comes, we shall settle both old and new scores. Qin Tian heavily nodded, a flicker of ruthlessness flashing in his eyes. Very well, I shall follow your lead. As night deepened, Qin Yu departed from the study. Yet he did not return to his own quarters. Instead, he vanished into the shadows of the night. According to the memories of his predecessor, for the past 5 years, a senior servant named Li Kezi had been delivering meals to him in the prison. This seemingly honest servant, who toiled in the kitchen, was unexpectedly an informant planted by Qin Tianba. In the servants' quarters, the sound of snoring echoed. Li Kezi was sound asleep when he suddenly felt a chill at his neck. Groggily opening his eyes, he caught sight of a cold, indifferent face staring back at him. Just as he was about to scream, a large hand clamped around his throat, lifting him as easily as one would a chick. Young Master Xiao? Recognizing the intruder, Li Kezi was paralyzed with fear, instantly soiling himself. Qin Yu's gaze was frigid, devoid of unnecessary words. Who instructed you to poison the food? Li Kezi shook his head vigorously, tears and snot streaming down his face. No, young Master Xiao, you are wronged. He casually tossed a heavy storage bag to Qin Bufan, containing 3 million spirit stones. Startled, Qin Bufan nearly dropped the bag. Brother, is this an enormous sum? Qin Yu produced a pre-prepared list. Purchase everything on this list. Xylem grass, Dihuang essence, and century-old blood ginseng. Acquire them all if they are available. Additionally, procure the finest materials for weapon forging. Chapter 18. The Uncle's Conspiracy. Qin Bufan glanced at the list. Although he could not comprehend the purpose of the concoction of herbs, he sensed that his cousin was up to something significant and inquired, Brother, are you going to refine pills? Qin Yu nodded, The younger generation of our family is lacking in foundation. I intend to concoct a batch of cleansing marrow pills to help our loyal kin undergo a rebirth, to contend against the other 3 prominent families. I cannot rely solely on myself. I require a capable elite guard. Qin Buffon's blood surged with enthusiasm as he thumped his chest in assurance. Rest assured, brother. I shall procure every herb in the city. Meanwhile, within a luxurious mansion in the eastern part of the city, Qin Tianba sat in a secret chamber, his expression dark enough to drip with water. Opposite him sat a corpulent middle-aged man clad in a golden silk robe, Wang Fugui, the head of the Wang family. One of the 4 prominent families of Qingyuan City. Qin Elder, you summoned me late at night. I wonder what urgent matter you wish to discuss? Wang Fugui twirled 2 jade walnuts in his hands, a smile plastered across his face, though his eyes gleamed with shrewdness. Qin Tianba gritted his teeth, as though he had made a resolute decision. Brother Wang, I shall be direct. I need your assistance to reclaim the position of head of the Qin family. Wang Fugui paused, his smile widening. Oh, but this is an internal affair of the Qin family. As an outsider, it may not be appropriate for me to interfere. Moreover, as you can see, Qin Yu now has the backing of the city lord's mansion, which makes him formidable. Qin Tianba snorted derisively. And what of the city lord's mansion? That old man Zhao Qinglong only values Qin Yu's talent. Once Qin Yu is dead, will the city lord's mansion risk a confrontation with us over a corpse? Should you agree to assist me, upon success, the 3 Xian iron mines under the Qin family will be yours. Wang Fugui's eyes brightened significantly. Those 3 mines were the lifeblood of the Qin family, yielding astonishing profits each year. Qin Tianba was indeed willing to sacrifice his family's assets for power. The price of those 3 mines was certainly enticing. Wang Fugui leaned forward, lowering his voice. However, Qin Yu's current strength is unfathomable. Even you are not his match. How can I assist you? A glint of madness flickered in Qin Tianba's eyes. I have been stuck at the mid-foundation stage for years, just a step away from breaking through. At the auction held by the city lord's mansion in 3 days, the centerpiece will be a millennium-old crimson blood fungus. If I acquire it, I will surely advance to the late foundation stage. At that moment, to slay that wretched creature would be as easy as slaughtering a dog. Yet, I find myself lacking sufficient spiritual stones. I require your assistance in lending me 5 million spiritual stones. Wang Fugui stroked his chin and pondered for a moment. 5 million spiritual stones in exchange for 3 mines. This transaction is undeniably profitable. Very well, it's a deal. Wang Fugui thumped his thigh in agreement. However, we must draft a written acknowledgement. After all, mere words hold no weight. Without hesitation, Qin Tianba promptly inscribed the document and affixed his seal. Gazing at the crimson handprint on the paper, Qin Tianba displayed a sinister grin. Qin Yu, just you wait. The auction in 3 days shall mark your demise. Little did he know, all of this was part of Qin Yu's elaborate scheme. Even that so-called millennium red blood fungus was a meticulously prepared gift from Qin Yu for him. On the following morning, as the first rays of sunlight penetrated the thin mist, a knock echoed on the door of the Qin residence. The visitor was none other than the chief steward of the city lord's mansion, flanked by 2 rows of elite guards clad in silver armor. Such a display left the doorkeepers of the Qin residence trembling in fear. The chief steward held a gilded invitation and bellowed at the entrance. By the order of the esteemed city lord, Master Qin Yu is cordially invited to the mansion for a discussion. His voice resonated not only within the Qin residence, but also reached the ears of the townsfolk down the street. The collateral relatives within the Qin residence, who had harbored ill intentions and wished to see Qin Yu falter, now shrank back, their expressions turning pale. To be personally invited by the city lord was an extraordinary honor. Clearly, the tides in Qingyuan City had shifted. Henceforth, anyone contemplating harm towards Qin Yu would need to weigh the influence of the city lord's mansion. Qin Yu donned a fresh azure robe and, with an air of calm detachment, accepted the invitation. He did not exhibit any signs of astonishment at this honor, as if it were merely a casual visit to a neighbor's home. Upon entering the opulent carriage of the city lord's mansion, the journey was smooth and uninterrupted, leading directly to the inner courtyard of the mansion. Inside the hall, a subtle yet palpable pressure pervaded the air. Seated in the main position was a middle-aged man, with a square face and broad mouth, emanating an aura of authority without the need for anger. This was none other than the sovereign of Qingyuan City, a cultivator at the initial stage of the Golden Core realm, Qianning. As Qin Yu crossed the threshold, the oppressive force surged towards him like a tidal wave. This was a test, a demonstration of authority. Were he an ordinary Qi refining stage cultivator, he would likely have crumpled under the weight of such Golden Core pressure, begging for mercy on the spot. Yet, who was Qin Yu? A once invincible emperor in his past life. Even now, in a fallen state, The pride and spirit etched into his very being could not be shaken by a mere golden core cultivator from this lower realm. Qin Yu's footsteps remained unbroken, his spine straight as an arrow piercing the heavens. A faint, elusive smile curled at the corners of his mouth as he boldly approached the guest seat and sat down with flamboyant ease. He lifted the spiritual tea from the table and took a gentle sip. It was exquisite tea. Qian Ning's pupils constricted slightly. He had deliberately intensified his pressure. Yet this young man appeared utterly unfazed. What truly unsettled him was, in that fleeting moment, he perceived a chilling aura emanating from the young man before him. It felt akin to an ant gazing up at a mighty dragon. Was it merely an illusion? Qian Ning suppressed his imposing presence and erupted into laughter. Indeed, heroes emerge from youth. Director Zhao remarked that you are a prodigy, and I was initially skeptical, yet now I find myself genuinely convinced. Qin Yu set down his teacup, maintaining a composed demeanor. Your Excellency, your praise is unwarranted. May I inquire as to the purpose of your visit today? Qian Ning tempered his mirth, leaning slightly forward, his gaze piercing. Praise is not my intent. I am simply curious about the origins of your extraordinary talents, young Master Qin. As far as I am aware, the Qin family could not possibly produce such a true dragon. Qin Yu had already formulated a response and casually fabricated a tale. 5 years ago, within the depths of the dungeon, I chanced upon a wandering old beggar. He perceived something remarkable in my bones and imparted a few techniques to me. As for the name of this venerable elder, he forbade me from disclosing it, and I dared not inquire further. This ethereal narrative of a transcendent master was the most compelling. As anticipated, upon hearing this, Qian Ning's expression grew markedly more serious. To cultivate a wastrel into such a prodigy, the master behind it must be at least at the nascent soul stage, if not an even more formidable powerhouse. Qian Ning decisively proclaimed, very well. Since young Master Qin has encountered such fortuitous circumstances, I shall be direct. I am willing to ally with the Qin family, henceforth. Matters concerning the Qin family in Qingyuan City will also pertain to my lordship's estate. This was an extraordinary promise, and Qin Yu nodded slightly, acknowledging the favor. Chapter 19. The Supreme VIP token. Immediately thereafter, Qian Ning hesitated momentarily, tapping his fingers lightly on the table, lowering his voice. Brother Qin, since we are allies, there is something I must caution you about. The charge of your previous retreat from battle is not as straightforward as it appears. I have scrutinized the records. The military orders at that time were issued under suspicious circumstances, seemingly influenced by significant figures in the capital. Until you possess absolute strength, I advise you to avoid that realm, lest I be unable to protect you. A glint of icy determination flashed in Qin Yu's eyes. Figures from the capital? It appeared that the original owner had been ensnared in a plot far more complex than mere family strife. The waters ran deeper than anticipated. Thank you for your warning, City Lord. I will bear it in mind. After the banquet, Zhao Qinglong approached, his face alight with smiles. Brother Qin, this evening, Wanbao Pavilion is hosting a grand auction, rumored to feature numerous coveted items. Would you care to attend? A flicker of interest ignited within Qin Yu. He was in need of rare spiritual herbs to cure his father of the lingering toxins, as well as materials to restore the Chaos Divine Cauldron. This was indeed fortuitous. To maintain a low profile, he donned a black-veiled hat. In public, his identity was that of the enigmatic prodigy, Qin Xian. Although Zhao Qinglong was well aware of the truth, he chose to remain silent, cheerfully accompanying him. Wanbao Pavilion, the largest den of indulgence in Qingyuan City, was now bustling with luxury cars and throngs of people at its entrance. As Qin Yu approached the entrance, he was suddenly met with a cacophony of derisive laughter. Oh, is that not the errand steward of the Qin family? How pitiful. Has the Qin family fallen so low that they can no longer afford a meal and have resorted to scavenging here? Qin Yu furrowed his brow and followed the sound. A group of elegantly dressed young gentlemen surrounded a boy with a simple demeanor, Qin Bufan. Today, under Qin Yu's orders, he had ventured out to procure some basic medicinal herbs, only to be cornered here unexpectedly. At the forefront stood a particularly ostentatious young man clad in a gaudy golden robe, fanning himself with a folding fan. His face a mask of arrogance. He was none other than Wang Tong, the eldest son of the Wang family. With a cultivation level at the initial stage of foundation establishment, he often leveraged his family's influence to bully others. Qin Bufan's face flushed crimson as he shielded the herbs he held behind him. Wang Tong, do not be so unreasonable. I am merely here to make a purchase. Make a purchase? Wang Tong scoffed, then kicked over the basket in Qin Bufan's hands. Several freshly bought spiritual herbs tumbled to the ground, where Wang Tong trampled them mercilessly, reducing them to a mushy wreck. With the pitiful state of your Qin family, do you even dare to enter the Wanbao Pavilion? The entry ticket costs 1,000 spirit stones. Do you possess such wealth? If not, quickly leave and do not sully my eyes. The onlookers pointed and whispered. most relishing the misfortune. The Qin family had fallen from grace, and now anyone could tread upon them. Tears welled in Qin Buffan's eyes as he gazed at the ruined herbs, money given by his cousin, painstakingly selected. Just then, a hand gently patted Qin Buffan's shoulder. Wipe your tears. Remember, if anyone dares to trample your belongings, you should sever their leg. Qin Bufan turned sharply to see Qin Yu, clad in a conical hat, providing him with a sense of reassurance. Brother, Wang Teng cast a sideways glance at Qin Yu, appraising him from head to toe. Oh, who is this emerging from the rat hole? What mystery do you think you portray with that tattered hat? Is it the trend for the Qin family to come in a group begging for scraps now? Ignoring Wang Teng's taunts, Qin Yu bent down, picked up the trampled spiritual herb, and dusted it off gently. He then approached Wang Teng. This herb is worth 10 spirit stones. You have destroyed it, and I demand compensation of 100,000. Wang Teng was momentarily taken aback, then erupted into laughter as if he had heard the most ludicrous of jokes. 100,000? Have you lost your mind? I will not pay a single coin. Suddenly, a crisp and resounding slap echoed through the air. Wang Teng spun like a top, turning 3 times before half of his face swelled up, resembling a bloated bun. A few bloodied teeth flew from his mouth. A profound silence enveloped the scene. No one had anticipated that this mysterious figure in a conical hat would dare to openly strike the eldest son of the Wang family at the entrance of the Wanbao Pavilion. You dare to hit me? Wang Teng, with his face concealed by his hands, seethed with resentment and screamed in a hysterical rage, "Someone, kill him. Chop him into pieces and feed him to the dogs." As several guards from the Wang family prepared to charge forward, Qin Yu nonchalantly retrieved a purple gold token from his robes, hurling it directly at the manager of the Wanbao Pavilion. "Open your eyes and behold what this is." The manager, flustered, caught the token and upon examining it, was nearly brought to his knees in terror. It was the supreme VIP token. This was the highest level of token issued by the city lord's manor. To see this token was akin to seeing the city lord himself. In the entirety of Qingyuan City, fewer than 3 individuals possessed such a token. The manager was drenched in cold sweat, and without further ado, he turned to Wang Teng with a fierce admonition. "Young Master Wang, do not be disrespectful. This esteemed guest is the most honored patron of the Wanbao Pavilion." Wang Teng was taken aback, clutching his swollen face and trembling as he pointed at Qin Yu. "Esteemed guest? He is clearly from the Qin family." Silence. The manager, fearing that Wang Teng might further offend this formidable figure, quickly signaled to the nearby guards. "Young Master Wang is clearly disoriented and has inadvertently offended our distinguished guest. You must escort him aside to compose himself." A group of Wanbao Pavilion guards surged forward, dragging the still bellowing Wang Teng away like a lifeless dog. Qin Yu did not spare Wang Teng a glance. He took Qin Buffan's hand, and under the manager's bowing and scraping guidance, made his way directly to the luxurious private box on the top floor, leaving behind a crowd of astonished onlookers. Who is this person? So audacious, even daring to strike the young master of the Wang family, and with a supreme token, he must be of great significance. Upon entering the box, Qin Yu removed his hat and settled into the soft beast-skin sofa. Through the one-way crystal window, he could clearly observe the auction stage below. Zhao Qinglong had long been seated there, and upon seeing Qin Yu, he gave a thumbs up. "Brother Qin, that slap just now was immensely satisfying." Qin Yu smiled faintly. "Just a few flies, hardly worth mentioning." Soon, the auction commenced in earnest. A captivating woman clad in a red dress ascended the stage, her opening remarks instantly electrifying the atmosphere. The initial items for auction were merely commonplace weapons and medicinal pills, of little interest to Qin Yu. It was not until the 7th item was presented that his attention was captured. As the red cloth was lifted, a blood-red ginseng, resembling a coiling dragon, lay within a jade box. 9 curved spirit ginseng, a 300-year-old miraculous herb, a holy medicine for healing, and it can assist foundational cultivators in breaking through their bottlenecks. The starting bid is 100,000 spirit stones. A glimmer of brilliance flashed in Qin Yu's eyes. This was precisely the principal herb he needed to purge the poison from his father and restore his foundation. He had to acquire it. 200,000. A rotund middle-aged man in the hall raised his bidding card first. It was none other than Wang Fuguwei, the head of the Wang family. He had come with 2 purposes. 1, on the behest of Qin Tianba, and 2, this spirit ginseng held great utility for him as well. 300,000. 400,000. The price soared rapidly, soon reaching 500,000. Wang Fuguwei gritted his teeth and proclaimed, 60,000. My family, the Wang clan, will take this spirit ginseng. I implore you all to show some respect. A momentary hush fell over the crowd. After all, the Wang family was one of the 4 great families, possessing substantial wealth, and most dared not confront them directly. A smug smile spread across Wang Fugui's face as he believed victory was assured. At that moment, a languid voice emanated from the top VIP box. 1 million. The crowd erupted in astonishment. An immediate increase of 400,000? Who was this extravagant spendthrift? Wang Fugui's smile froze on his face as he glanced at the top box, his eyes ablaze with fury. 110,000. 150,000. Qin Yu's voice remained unruffled, as if he were bidding for mere stones rather than a rare spirit stone. Wang Fugui trembled with rage. 160,000. Friend. Let us keep some leeway for future encounters. 2 million. Qin Yu disregarded his plea, assaulting with sheer monetary force. Wang Fugui was on the brink of insanity. 2 million spirit stones. This was an exorbitant markup. It was no longer a wise purchase. Yet, he was unwilling to concede. 210,000. That is my bottom line. 3 million. Qin Yu nonchalantly uttered those 3 words. Wang Fugui felt a crushing weight in his chest, nearly spewing blood in shock. 3 million? For a single spirit ginseng? This was madness. A deathly silence enveloped the room, as all were stunned by the extravagance of this wealthy patron. 3 million once, 3 million twice, sold. The auctioneer was nearly beside himself with excitement. In the box, Zhao Qinglong gazed at Qin Yu in awe, exclaiming, Brother Qin, you are exceedingly extravagant. Qin Yu toyed with the teacup in his hand, a subtle smile gracing his lips. Any problem that could be solved with spirit stones was not a problem at all. Having earned 10 million from the Ascending Tower, plus ill-gotten gains from the Qin Tianba lineage, his liquid assets now surpassed the entirety of the Wang family's wealth combined. For the subsequent auction items, anything that caught Qin Yu's eye was acquired at elevated prices. Wang Fugui and several heads of families hoping to scoop up bargains were thoroughly humiliated, left only to glare helplessly. Finally, it came to the climactic segment. A servant approached with a tray, upon which lay a small, rusted metal fragment the size of a palm. It appeared battered and devoid of any spiritual energy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a fragment discovered in an ancient relic. While its material and purpose remain unknown, it is incredibly hard, impervious to fire and water. And even spirit artifacts cannot leave a mark upon it. The starting bid is 10,000 spirit stones. A chorus of derision arose from the audience. A mere scrap of metal is the grand finale? Has the Wanbao Pavilion run out of items to sell? However, at the moment the fragment was revealed, the Chaos Divine Cauldron within Qin Yu's dantian began to tremble violently. An overwhelming yearning, tinged with a hint of madness, surged into Qin Yu's mind. The intensity of his heart raced, almost betraying his composure. The chaotic Divine Cauldron was a treasure of creation, and its excitement could only stem from one possibility. It was the missing fragment of the cauldron. Qin Yu inhaled deeply, forcefully suppressing his elation. This object was priceless. To suggest it was worth mere millions was absurd. Even selling the entirety of Qingyuan City would not equate to a fraction of its worth. At that moment, a raspy voice unexpectedly emerged from the adjacent private room. 50,000 spirit stones. Qin Yu's gaze sharpened. Although this voice was deliberately disguised, he recognized it all too well. Qin Tianba, that old fox, had arrived. Although Qin Tianba was unaware of the exact nature of the treasure, he instinctively sensed its significance. Moreover, this time he had brought with him a substantial sum of 5 million, granting him confidence. 100,000, Qin Yu replied nonchalantly. 200,000. Qin Tianba relentlessly pursued. 500,000. 1 million. Qin Tianba gritted his teeth, determined to assert himself today. Qin Yu scoffed, competing with me in spirit stones? 5 million. The mere utterance of those 3 words seemed to press the entire auction house into a state of suspension. 5 million spirit stones. For a mere shard of iron? Madness. Utter madness. Within Qin Tianba's private room, the sound of a shattered teacup echoed ominously. The total spirit stones he possessed amounted to 5 million, and he needed to reserve some for other resources to advance. This revelation left him utterly cornered. Damn it, who on earth is this? Qin Tianba's eyes burned crimson. 5 million once. Qin Yu successfully secured the fragment, yet he was acutely aware that the true peril was only just beginning. After the auction concluded, at the rear entrance of the Wanbao Pavilion, Qin Tianba and Wang Fugui met. Their expressions were ominously dark, their eyes glinting with murderous intent. Have you ascertained who the figure in the hat was? Qin Tianba inquired coldly. Wang Fugui spat disdainfully. No leads. The Wanbao Pavilion is tight-lipped. However, I saw that brat leave alone, without any formidable companions. A flicker of ruthless resolve crossed Qin Tianba's eyes. Since we cannot match him in wealth, let us not be merciful. Once we exit the city, we shall find a secluded spot and deal with him. The treasure is mine. The money is yours. Wang Fugui grinned maliciously. That suits me perfectly. At this juncture, Qin Yu walked alone along a secluded path leading out of the city. He had declined Zhao Qinglong's offer of escort and deliberately slowed his pace. His formidable consciousness had already extended, allowing him to perceive every whisper of wind and rustle of grass within several miles. The faint traces of murderous intent trailing behind him were as conspicuous as beacons in the night. Qin Yu halted, gazing intently into the darkened woods ahead. A cruel smile curved at the corners of his lips. The fish had taken the bait. Since you desire this fragment so fervently, come and claim it, provided you have the breath to do so. Qin Yu's figure flickered as he willingly plunged into the perilous depths of the forest. Outside the city, 10 miles away, lay a grove of dead trees. The night was dark and windy, with the mournful cries of crows echoing. This was a desolate graveyard on the outskirts of Qingyuan city, a place so eerie that not even a ghost could be seen on ordinary days. Qin Yu treaded upon the carpet of withered branches and fallen leaves, producing a series of crackling sounds. As he ventured deeper into the woods, he suddenly halted. The wind seemed to still. A cold smile crept onto Qin Yu's lips. Without turning back, he addressed the empty forest with a calm demeanor. Have your legs grown weary from following me? Come forth. This spot boasts excellent feng shui, perfect for burying the dead. No sooner had he spoken than the air around him appeared to freeze for a moment. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Several dark figures descended from the treetops like night owls, fanning out in a crescent formation, effectively sealing off all of Qin Yu's escape routes. Chapter 21. The Battle of Foundation Establishment. There were 5 individuals in total, each clad in dark garments, their faces obscured by black cloth, revealing only their eyes that glinted with malice. The leader, a burly figure, exuded a suffocating aura of intimidation. Early-stage Foundation Establishment. The remaining 4 were no less formidable, all at the peak of Qi refinement. This assembly was more than capable of dispatching a mere novice in the Qi refinement stage, let alone encircling a Foundation Establishment cultivator. They were the Blood Shadow Guard, a killer group generously funded by the Wang family. Kik. The leading figure let out a laugh that sounded like a rusty gong. His gaze fixated on Qin Yu, as if he were a fool. Kid, it seems you possess some self-awareness, choosing a suitable burial site for yourself. Had Zhao Qinglong been escorting you, we might have hesitated to strike. Alas, you choose not to tread the path to paradise, and instead, you come willingly to hell. Qin Yu turned to face them, his gaze calm as it swept over the 5 figures, finally resting on the leader. Sent by the Wang family. Though phrased as a question, his tone conveyed certainty. A flicker of surprise crossed the leader's eyes, quickly morphing into disdain. Dead men need not know too much. Hand over your storage bag willingly, and then you may slice your own throat. I might leave you with a complete corpse. Otherwise, I shall dismember you and feed you to the dogs, and that would be a most unpleasant fate. Qin Yu shook his head, letting out a sigh. Why is it that some are so eager to embrace death? He made no move to draw the rusted sword at his waist, simply resting his hand upon the hilt. Attack. Swiftly and decisively. The black-clad leader evidently wished to avoid further conversation, aware that delays could lead to unforeseen complications. With his command, the 4 peak Qi refinement assassins sprang into action in unison, launching themselves at Qin Yu from all 4 corners. Their daggers gleaming with a sinister blue light under the moon, a scene poised for a fatal conclusion. In the face of such a relentless onslaught, any Qi refinement practitioner would likely be reduced to a pincushion in an instant. Yet, Qin Yu remained utterly unmoved, just as 4 daggers were poised to pierce his garments. A crisp sound of swordplay resonated. The rusted sword in Qin Yu's hand slid from its sheath by a mere half-inch. In that fleeting moment, a dazzling radiance erupted, akin to a full moon, centered on Qin Yu. Swift, incredibly swift, so rapid that the 4 assassins had no time to react, their expressions of fear not even having the chance to surface. With a series of muted thuds, 4 columns of blood shot skyward, and 4 heads, shrouded in black cloth, soared through the air, tracing parabolic arcs under the moonlight. Soon after, there were several heavy thuds as the headless corpses, still maintaining their forward momentum, crashed down at Qin Yu's feet. Blood stained the withered leaves. 1 sword. Instant annihilation of 4 peak Qi refinement cultivators. Qin Yu slowly sheathed his sword, not even casting a glance at the fallen bodies, as though he had merely swatted a few mosquitoes. The leader of the black-clad figures, who had initially crossed his arms in anticipation of the spectacle, nearly had his eyes bulging from their sockets. A chill surged from his soles to his crown. The intelligence was erroneous. Was this truly a Qi refinement stage practitioner? Who among them could slay their peers with such ease? Who exactly are you? The leader's voice trembled, his hand now wielding a blood-red flying dagger. This was a low-grade spirit tool, his greatest reliance. Qin Yu raised his gaze, a smile that was not quite a smile gracing his lips. Who I am is of little consequence. What matters is that you are about to become a corpse. Arrogance. The black-clad leader, being a Foundation Establishment cultivator, quickly suppressed his fear, replaced by a furious indignation. Your previous success was nothing more than a surprise attack. Ultimately, a Qi refinement practitioner is but an ant in the presence of a foundation establishment master. Die. With a roar, the leader channeled all his spiritual energy into the flying dagger. Hiss. The blood-red dagger swelled immediately, transforming into a massive serpent, as thick as a barrel. With its gaping maw, exuding a nauseating stench, it lunged viciously towards Qin Yu. The might of a full-force strike from a foundation establishment cultivator was formidable. The surrounding withered trees shattered under the pressure. Yet, in light of this fierce assault, Qin Yu did not confront it head-on. With a deft step, his form became a blur. Utilizing the flowing cloud sword technique, he executed the cloud-hidden kill. In an instant, he vanished from sight like a wraith. Boom. The blood-red serpent struck the ground with tremendous force, creating a bottomless crater. Where is he? A jolt of anxiety coursed through the black-clad leader as he frantically scanned his surroundings. At that moment, Qin Yu's figure appeared 3 zhang to his left. In this instant, Qin Yu did not rush to attack. The chaotic divine cauldron within his dantian was vibrating wildly. The mysterious fragment he had just acquired at the auction now hovered above the cauldron. Since you seek your own demise, let me use you to consecrate the cauldron. With a flicker of thought, Qin Yu commanded, devour. The chaotic divine cauldron emitted a jubilant hum, swiftly engulfing the fragment. Boom. An immensely pure and ancient chaotic source of power surged forth from the cauldron, instantly coursing through Qin Yu's limbs and bones. The intensity of this power was overwhelming. So much so that Qin Yu felt his body might burst under its pressure. If he did not release it, he would be consumed by it. Just in time. A brilliant light shone in Qin Yu's eyes, and his bones cracked like popping beans. He cast aside his sword, clenching his right hand into a fist. Harnessing this frenzied source of power, Qin Yu propelled himself like a cannonball directly toward the black-clad leader. Seeking death, daring to engage me in hand-to-hand combat? The black-clad leader, seeing Qin Yu abandon his sword for a fist, was elated. Foundation establishment cultivators, having undergone spiritual cleansing, possess bodies far superior to those of Qi refinement practitioners. Engaging him in a fistfight? Was this not courting death? Shattered jade fist. The black-clad leader sneered, striking out with his own fist. The wind from his punch howled, reinforced by the protective spiritual energy of the foundation establishment stage, forcefully meeting Qin Yu's fist. Upon impact, there was no stalemate as anticipated. Crack. A bone-cracking sound, sharp enough to make one wince, echoed clearly. Following that was the black-clad leader's piercing scream. Qin Yu's punch, imbued with chaotic source energy, was as heavy as 10,000 pounds. It directly disregarded the leader's protective energy, shattering his fist as easily as breaking tofu. The momentum did not wane. Continuing up his arm. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, the entirety of the black-clad leader's right arm exploded into a mist of blood. Qin Yu's fist stamped firmly against his chest. Poof. The leader's ribcage collapsed inward, and he was sent flying like a broken kite, crashing violently into a tree thick enough for 2 to embrace. The tree snapped in half. The black-clad leader crumpled to the ground like a puddle of mud, blood gushing from his mouth, mingled with fragments of his internal organs. With a single punch, a foundation establishment novice was grievously wounded. Chapter 22. Qi Refinement 9th Layer. Qin Yu slowly retracted his fist, exhaling a breath of stale air. After delivering that punch, the painful pressure within him dissipated considerably. He approached the black-clad leader, looking down at him from a height. Fear and despair filled the leader's eyes at that moment. What manner of monster is this? A Qi refinement practitioner shattering a foundation establishment cultivator with a single punch? Has the world gone mad? Please, spare me. The black-clad leader pleaded, struggling to beg for mercy. Suddenly, a fierce glint flashed in his eyes, his teeth clenched with intensity, as he contemplated biting down on the poison pouch concealed in his mouth for a swift demise. As an assassin, failure equated to death. Rather than endure torment, he preferred a quick end. Wishing for death? Have you sought my consent? Qin Yu scoffed, his movements as swift as lightning. Crack. He swiftly severed the jaw of the black-clad leader. The leader could only emit muffled sounds, his gaze filled with despair. Qin Yu crouched down, his deep-set eyes transforming into inky blackness, resembling 2 swirling black holes. Look into my eyes. His voice resonated with an enchanting power. The black-clad leader found himself uncontrollably drawn to Qin Yu's gaze. Boom. An immense, terrifying force of divine soul surged violently into his consciousness. Soul-searching technique. This was a domineering divine ability, demanding a high level of soul from the practitioner and delivering a devastating blow to the recipient. The black-clad leader convulsed violently, his eyes rolling back, froth escaping his mouth. Countless fragments of memories flashed through Qin Yu's mind like a revolving lantern. Moments later, Qin Yu released his grip and stood up. The black-clad leader lay motionless on the ground, utterly reduced to an imbecile. However, Qin Yu's expression turned exceptionally grim. What a schemer Qin Tianba was, what a disgraceful family. Through the soul search, he not only confirmed that this assassination was a collaborative plot between Qin Tianba and the Wang family, but he also uncovered a shocking secret. In a bid to enlist the Wang family's assistance in usurping power, Qin Tianba had even used a copy of the ancestral map of the Xian iron mine as collateral for the Wang family. Furthermore, it was agreed that once successful, he would cede 3 core mining sites to the Wang family. This was akin to selling out one's heritage for personal gain. This meant relinquishing the century-old foundation of the Qin family. Truly a treacherous, ungrateful wretch. A murderous intent gleamed in Qin Yu's eyes. Initially, he had contemplated toying with them, but it now seemed unnecessary. Such familial traitors, living another day would only serve as an affront to the ancestors of the Qin family. Qin Yu unleashed a ball of golden flames, born of chaotic spiritual energy. The flames descended upon several corpses, igniting a fierce blaze in an instant. In the blink of an eye, the bodies, along with the bloodstains on the ground, were reduced to ashes, scattered by the wind. The evidence was eradicated efficiently and thoroughly. Having completed this, Qin Yu did not hasten to depart, although his previous punch had released a considerable amount of energy. The primal force reflected from the Chaos Divine Cauldron was overwhelmingly vast. At this moment, it surged violently within him. The bottleneck that had plagued him for so long was on the verge of collapse. Given this, it was time to break through. Qin Yu settled cross-legged on the ground, his heart directed towards the heavens. The Chaos Divine art surged into action with fervor. The thin spiritual energy of the surrounding world seemed to respond to an unseen call, wildly converging towards this desolate forest, forming a miniature vortex of spiritual energy. The meridians within Qin Yu surged like roaring rivers, emitting a resounding thunderous sound. Break! With a low exclamation resonating in his heart, a crisp sound akin to shattering glass echoed within him. Boom! A formidable aura erupted from his being, shattering the surrounding withered leaves into dust. He had reached the 9th level of Qi refinement. Merely consuming a fragment had spared him months of arduous cultivation. Slowly, Qin Yu opened his eyes, 2 gleaming golden lights flickering briefly within their depths. Rising to his feet, he clenched his fist, feeling the surging power coursing through him. At this moment, even without employing the primordial force of the chaotic divine cauldron, he could confront foundational cultivators in their early stages head-on. If he revealed his trump cards, he could even contend with those in the mid-foundation stage. Qin Yu turned his gaze towards the direction of Qingyuan City, a cold smirk curling at the corners of his mouth. Uncle, since you have invited outsiders in, attempting to play a game of bringing wolves into the fold, I shall deliver a fitting response. I hope your old bones can withstand the grand gift I am about to bestow upon you. In the dead of night, the Qin residence lay shrouded in silence. A shadow, akin to a specter, gracefully leaped over the wall, disturbing no guards, and made its way directly to a side room in the inner courtyard. Who? Qin Bufan, alert, sat up in bed, clutching a dagger. It is I. Qin Yu removed his hat, revealing a calm visage. Cousin, you have returned. Qin Bufan sighed in relief and hurriedly got out of bed to light a lamp. Seeing Qin Yu unscathed, his anxious heart finally settled. Brother, I heard the Wang family has laid an ambush outside the city. Just a few insignificant fish. They have been dealt with, Qin Yu replied casually, as if discussing a trivial matter. He pulled out a blood-stained jade pendant and a drawing adorned with intricate lines from his pocket, tossing them onto the table. The pendant was a token of the Wang family's assassins, while the drawing was a copied map of the mineral veins that Qin Yu had sketched from memory. Bufan, I have a task for you. Qin Yu's expression turned solemn. Qin Bufan immediately straightened his back. Brother, speak. I will not flinch at any peril. Qin Yu pointed to the items on the table. You need not face peril. Take these items and visit the Lord's mansion tonight, seeking a secret audience with Zhao Qinglong. INF furthermore, please convey to Supervisor Zhao that I have devised a plan. As Qin Bufan listened, his eyes sparkled with increasing intensity until he could no longer suppress a gasp of astonishment. Brother, this stratagem of yours is truly remarkable. If it succeeds, Qin Tianba and the Wang family will not merely suffer, but will be utterly annihilated. Qin Yu patted his shoulder, urging him with caution. Go, but be discreet. Do not allow anyone to see you. Certainly. With excitement radiating from his expression, Qin Bufan seized the items on the table and dashed into the night. Watching his departing figure, Qin Yu moved to the window, gazing at the waning moon in the sky. In 3 days, Qin Tianba and Wang Fuguwei, I shall prepare for you a funeral that will be etched into memory forever. The night cloaked the surroundings like ink, as a narrow crack opened quietly at the back gate of the Lord's residence. Clad in a black cloak, Qin Bufan concealed within him the evidence capable of upheaving the Qin family, his heart pounding like a drum. Following his cousin's instructions, he bypassed the main entrance and displayed the blood-stained jade pendant given by Qin Yu. Upon sighting the artifact, the guard's expression changed drastically, and without a word, he led him into the inner study. Chapter 23. Are we to rebel? Inside the study, the lights blazed brightly. Zhao Qinglong sat regally in an armchair, fiddling with two iron walnuts that emitted a crisp sound. You mean to say that Qin Yu advised you not to present the evidence just yet? Zhao Qinglong raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise crossing his eyes as he absorbed Qin Bufan's words. Qin Bufan swallowed hard, forcing himself to maintain composure. Indeed, Supervisor Zhao. My brother asserted that striking a snake, but failing to kill it could lead to repercussions. While the evidence of collusion with bandits and illicit mineral sales could incriminate Qin Tianba, it would be challenging to fully implicate the Wang family. After all, they could claim ignorance or assert that they were deceived by Qin Tianba. To eradicate this nest of vermin entirely, they must be compelled to reveal themselves, solidifying the charges in broad daylight. Zhao Qinglong paused in his actions, leaning forward with keen interest as he regarded Qin Bufan. Quite intriguing. What does Qin Yu plan to do? Qin Bufan leaned closer, lowering his voice to divulge the entire scheme to lure the snake from its den. After a moment of silence, Zhao Qinglong suddenly slapped his thigh and laughed heartily. Excellent. What a brilliant mind Qin Yu possesses. His cunning and tactics are extraordinary. He hardly resembles a mere youth in his 20s. Rather, he embodies the wisdom of a cunning fox that has lived for centuries. Very well. We shall proceed as he suggests. Someone, a personal guard, entered at his command. Zhao Qinglong's eyes gleamed with intensity as he spoke with a grave tone. Relay the orders. Seal the city gates, and send additional personnel to the tea houses and taverns in the city to disseminate the news. Announce that the young master of the Qin family, Qin Yu, was ambushed by ruthless bandits outside the city, leaving no trace behind. The following morning, the sky over Qingyuan city appeared dim and gray, as if foreshadowing that momentous events were to unfold that day. An explosive piece of news spread like wildfire, soaring through the streets and alleys. Have you heard? Qin Yu is dead. Is that true? Wasn't he lavishly spending at the auction just yesterday? Indeed. Rumor has it that he was dismembered in the desolate woods 10 miles outside the city. Not a single whole corpse was left behind. The scene was utterly gruesome, strewn with blood and mangled flesh. Alas, such is the fate of the talented, having just claimed the championship title, and barely had he basked in glory for 2 days. It seems he has drawn the ire of his enemies, especially after his ostentatious display yesterday. The streets are abuzz with speculation, some lamenting his fate, others reveling in his misfortune, while many simply relish the spectacle. At the Qin estate, in the elder-s courtyard, Qin Tianba was leisurely sipping tea, delicately grasping an exquisite purple clay teapot. Suddenly, a trusted subordinate burst in, breathless with excitement. Elder, joyous news. Utterly delightful tidings. What is the commotion? Compose yourself. Qin Tianba replied, taking a slow sip of tea, his eyelids barely flickering. Yes, it is said that Qin Yu was ambushed and murdered last night in the desolate woods. His body left in tatters. I heard there were signs of a struggle, and a large part of the forest was set ablaze. With a crash, Qin Tianba's teapot shattered on the ground, yet he felt no regret. Instead, he stood abruptly, laughing uproariously. Ha ha ha. Excellent. The Wang family's blood shadow guards truly live up to their reputation. They are efficient in their dealings. Qin Yu. Oh Qin Yu, you were too arrogant, weren't you? No matter your talents, in death you are but a heap of rotting flesh. Tears of laughter nearly streamed down his face. The heavy burden that had weighed upon his heart these past few days had finally been lifted. With Qin Yu's demise, the ailing Qin Tian was left. He would be easily manipulated. The Qin family would ultimately return to the grasp of Qin Tianba. He composed himself, a flicker of ruthlessness flashing in his eyes. Bring me ink and paper. I shall pen a letter to the head of the Wang family. With this obstacle cleared, the grand performance must commence today. At the stroke of noon, beneath the blazing sun, a series of urgent and somber bell tolls suddenly reverberated across the Qin estate. This was the summoning bell, rung only during matters of life and death concerning the clan. Instantly, chaos ensued within the Qin estate. All elders, stewards, and core family members, regardless of their tasks, were compelled to abandon their duties and hasten to the council hall. Inside the council hall, the atmosphere was stifling. Qin Tian sat in the seat of the family head, his complexion as pale as parchment, eyes sunken, occasionally seized by violent fits of coughing. In his hand, he clutched a white handkerchief, faint traces of blood visible upon it. This, of course, was a ruse. After Qin Yu had forced poison upon him the previous night, his health had improved significantly. However, to align with his son's scheme, he had deliberately summoned a bit of false sweat using his internal energy. It appears as though the flames of urgency have ignited. heralding a demise that is all but imminent. Flanking the Grand Hall, the upper echelons of the Qin family stand in attendance. To the left are the adherents of Qin Tianba, each one standing tall, their faces betraying an unmistakable joy. To the right, however, are the loyalists supporting the family head, their expressions somber, as if mourning a profound loss. The news of Qin Yu's demise has struck them with devastating force. The flicker of hope they had clung to has been extinguished overnight. Second brother, what is the purpose of summoning the assembly? Qin Tian, weakly reclining in his chair, spoke in a hoarse and feeble voice. In the center of the hall stood Qin Tianba, resplendent in a new brocade robe, his countenance glowing with vitality. He feigned a deep sigh, allowing a few crocodile tears to fall. Brother, my intentions are solely for the welfare of our family. The misfortune that has befallen Yu pains me deeply, for we have watched him grow. Yet, death is irreversible, and our family cannot be without a leader. Nor can it be without an heir for even a single day. With the Qin family beset by internal and external tribulations, and your health in such decline, it is truly unwise for you to overexert yourself any further. A cold smile curled on Qin Tian's lips, his gaze laced with irony. And so? What is it you wish to convey? Standing tall, Qin Tianba revealed his true intentions. For the sake of the Qin family's century-long legacy, I propose the reinstatement of the young master, or even the appointment of a new family head. At this proclamation, the hall erupted in an uproar. Qin Tianba, are you inciting rebellion? An elderly elder, his hair as white as snow, trembled with rage as he pointed accusingly at Qin Tianba. While the body is still warm, you rushed to seize power. Has your conscience been devoured by dogs? Qin Tianba's expression darkened, and he let out a cold snort. Elder San, one may indulge in the consumption of food, but one must not speak recklessly. I am merely acting in accordance with the will of heaven, in tune with the sentiments of the people. Your branch is left with but a single frail remnant. Shall we allow the entirety of the Qin family to accompany him to the grave? With that, he clapped his hands, and a trusted aide promptly brought forth a brocade box. Qin Tianba opened it, revealing a scroll of yellowed parchment, which he raised high. This is the testament left by our ancestor. It clearly states that if the main lineage is incapable, leading to the family's decline, a virtuous member from the collateral line may take their place. I have safeguarded this testament, and today, for the greater good of our family, I am compelled to present it. Chapter 24. A reckoning. The clan members exchanged bewildered glances. The ancestor's testament? None had ever laid eyes upon such a document. Who could ascertain its authenticity? Yet, it was evident to those with discerning eyes that this was nothing more than a forgery. However, with Qin Yu deceased, Qin Tian gravely ill, and Qin Tianba wielding significant influence, who would dare to voice dissent? I support the elder. Indeed, the Qin family must not fall into the hands of the incompetent. The elder is revered and possesses formidable strength. He is the undeniable choice for family head. Those elders and officials who had long been bought off hastened to express their allegiance. The atmosphere in the hall shifted dramatically, tilting in favor of Qin Tianba. Observing the farcical performance of these clowns, Qin Tian could not suppress a series of cold chuckles within. Yet he feigned an appearance of utter exasperation. You all cough, cough, cough. He erupted into a violent fit of coughing, as if he were about to expel his very lungs. At that moment, a resounding bang echoed through the chamber as the heavy doors of the assembly hall were forcefully kicked open. The formidable wooden doors collided with the walls, producing a thunderous noise that startled everyone present, who turned to gaze in astonishment. Entering with an ostentatious swagger was a portly middle-aged man draped in garments of wealth, accompanied by a cadre of menacing guards. It was none other than Wang Fugui, the head of the Wang family. Behind him trailed a cadre of foundation-building experts, each radiating malice without reservation. Ah, the Qin family is quite lively, isn't it? Wang Fugui remarked, idly twirling an iron walnut in his hand, his corpulent visage quivering as he smiled like a benevolent Buddha, though his eyes were laced with venom. Wang Fugui, this is a meeting of the Qin family. What business do you have here? Elderson shouted in fury. What business? Why, I have come to express my condolences. Wang Fugui replied with a smile that did not reach his eyes. I heard that the young Master Qin has passed away, and it weighs heavily on my heart. So I thought I would pay a visit. And, incidentally, to collect a debt. With that, he produced a promissory note from his bosom, shaking it in the air. Elder Qin Tianba borrowed 5 million spirit stones from me to facilitate family operations. This is all documented in black and white, complete with a red seal. Given the current circumstances of the Qin family, I feared you might default on the debt, so I brought my men to collect. You can either repay the loan or cede the 3 iron ore mines in the west of the city to me. Of course, if you truly cannot muster the funds, you may appoint Qin Tianba as the new head of the family. After all, I have a long-standing friendship with him. Should he assume leadership, the debt could be renegotiated. This exchange flowed seamlessly, an intricate dance of coercion aimed at driving Qin Tian to a dead end. Refusal to yield? Then repay the debt. Unable to repay? Then cede territory. Regardless of the path chosen, the Qin family appeared doomed. Qin Tian, upon glancing at the promissory note in Wang Fugui's hand, trembled with rage. This was not merely a debt, it was akin to a treasonous pact. Qin Tianba, in his quest for power, had indeed sold out the ancestral heritage. Qin Tianba, you have colluded with outsiders and betrayed the family's interests. Qin Tian exclaimed, pointing at Qin Tianba, his finger quivering with indignation. Yet, Qin Tianba wore an expression of indifference, having already severed ties and no longer pretending to care. Brother, how can this be called betrayal? This is for the future of the family. Once I ascend as head, the Wang family will become our allies, and together, Qin Yu city will belong to both our families. If you are wise, you will promptly hand over the family seal and retire to the back mountains. Otherwise, do not blame me for disregarding our brotherly bond. Qin Tianba advanced step by step toward the head seat, his aura steadily escalating. The pressure from his mid-foundation building cultivation was unleashed without restraint, suffocating the loyal faction members present. Wang Fugui, accompanied by his men, encircled the area, effectively obstructing all exits of the Grand Hall. Patriarch Qin, do sign the document. Do not refuse the toast only to face punishment. Today, you shall sign, whether you wish to or not. Wang Fugui sneered, producing a pre-written abdication letter from his bosom and flinging it before Qin Tian. In a corner, Qin Bufan observed the scene, his fists clenched tightly, producing a sound akin to cracking knuckles, his palms drenched with cold sweat. He cast a glance outside the door, thinking, cousin, if you do not arrive soon, uncle truly might not withstand this pressure. Qin Tian gazed at the abdication document before him, then glanced at the overbearing Qin Tianba and Wang Fugui. He closed his eyes, inhaling deeply, as if resigning himself to fate. Very well, I shall comply, he stammered, trembling as he retrieved a jade seal from his robe, an emblem of the head of the Qin family. Qin Tianba's eyes fixed upon the jade seal, his breath quickening, a glimmer of greed igniting within them. For 2 decades, he had awaited this moment. With possession of this seal, he would become the true master of the Qin family. Hand it over. Qin Tianba eagerly extended his hand toward the jade seal. Just as his fingertips were about to brush against the cold surface of the seal, a voice, cool and mocking yet steeped in an air of chilling enigma, echoed from the entrance of the hall. Uncle is so eager to ascend. Have you consulted me, the young master? The voice, though not loud, struck like thunder in the ears of all present. Qin Tianba's hand froze mid-air, as if ensnared by an invisible force. The ecstasy on his face instantly solidified, replaced by sheer terror, as the familiarity of that voice struck him with disbelief. How could this be possible? Wang Fugui's flesh quivered, nearly dropping the iron walnut he was twirling. An eerie silence enveloped the room. Everyone mechanically turned their heads toward the entrance. The once closed door now revealed blinding sunlight, and a tall, graceful figure emerged, walking deliberately into view. Dressed in pristine white attire, immaculate and unwrinkled, the man bore a strikingly handsome face adorned with a subtle smirk. His deep, starry eyes coldly regarded the frozen Qin Tianba, as if observing a mere jester. Qin Yu? Qin Tianba emitted a shrill cry, his voice cracking like that of a duck caught by the throat. You were supposed to be dead. I witnessed the Wang family's carrier pigeon. How could you still be alive? As Qin Yu crossed the threshold into the hall, each step amplified his imposing aura. Dead? Does my uncle long for my demise? Alas, the king of hell declared my life too resilient, and thus, he returned me to the mortal realm. Qin Yu strode to the center of the hall, his gaze sweeping over the elders who had just moments ago clamored for the ousting of the family head. One by one, they turned pale with fear, lowering their heads, unwilling to meet his eyes. Eventually, Qin Yu's gaze settled on Wang Fugui. Wang, I hear you have come to collect a debt? How fortuitous, for I too have an account I wish to settle with you. Wang Fugui, looking at the unscathed Qin Yu, could not help but recall the entire squad of blood shadow guards he had dispatched. A chilling dread surged from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Had the blood shadow guards been annihilated? What manner of creature was this boy? Chapter 25. The mask is torn. Wang Fugui's corpulent frame trembled violently, disbelief etched upon his face. He pointed at Qin Yu. His throat constricted as if a feather had lodged within, his voice sharp and piercing. Impossible. The blood shadow guards are elite warriors, painstakingly nurtured by my Wang family. All at the peak of Qi refinement, with their leader in the foundation establishment stage. How can you possibly still be alive? Where are they? The moment the words escaped his lips, Wang Fugui clamped his mouth shut, but it was evidently too late. The assembly hall fell into a silence so profound that one could hear a pin drop. All eyes converged upon the rotund figure, their expressions rife with shock and fury. Had he unwittingly confessed? Just moments ago, he had claimed to be here to pay respects, only to now reveal his true colors. A cold smile curled upon Qin Yu's lips as he regarded Wang Fuguwei with a knowing glance. He said nothing, merely reaching into his robe and producing an assortment of items. With a flourish, he tossed several dark iron tokens, stained with dark red blood, onto the central table as if discarding refuse. The tokens clattered against the surface, each sound reverberating like a hammer striking the hearts of both Wang Fuguwei and Qin Tianba. These were the identity tokens of the Blood Shadow Guards, emblazoned with the Wang family crest, still bearing the remnants of fresh blood. Family head Wang, are you searching for these scraps of iron? Qin Yu brushed the dust from his hands, his tone as nonchalant as if he were inquiring about the weather. Regrettably, those so-called elite warriors of yours have likely become fertilizer in the desolate woods outside the city. Wang Fuguwei's countenance turned ashen as he gazed upon the tokens, his legs nearly buckling beneath him. Annihilated? The entirety of a squad of Blood Shadow Guards, utterly wiped out? What monstrous being was this? Qin Tianba, being the cunning old fox he was, reacted swiftly. His eyes darted, and he pointed an accusatory finger at Qin Yu, bellowing in a bid to sow confusion. Nonsense. Qin Yu, in your attempt to frame the family head, you have forged those tokens. This is clearly a scheme to collude with outsiders and slay fellow cultivators, all to implicate the Wang family. A heart as vile as yours is unworthy of being a descendant of the Qin family. Where is the enforcement hall? Seize this treacherous wretch at once. Qin Tianba's voice echoed in a fit of desperation, the veins on his neck bulging with intensity. He felt compelled to stir the waters, to take the initiative before anyone else could. However, the disciples of the law enforcement hall, who had once regarded him with unwavering loyalty, now exchanged glances, paralyzed by fear. After all, if even a foundational stage assassin had fallen to Qin Yu, were they to throw themselves into the fray and meet a similar fate? Qin Yu regarded the flustered Qin Tianba with a mocking glint in his eyes. Uncle, do you still wish to turn the tables at this moment? Have you performed enough theatrics? With that, he gently clapped his hands twice. Bu Fan, let our esteemed elders witness the commendable deeds of our grand elder. Having kept his breath held in the corner, Qin Bufan stood tall, raising high the parchment and the debt notes stamped with a crimson seal. His voice resonated, reaching every corner of the hall. Esteemed elders, respected clansmen, as the grand elder, Qin Tianba has not only failed to promote the prosperity of our family, but has, in his pursuit of power, clandestinely sold off core family assets. This is his own signed agreement, in which he pledged the 3 Xiantai mines in the west of the city for a meager 5 million spirit stones to the Wang family. Furthermore, he colluded with the Wang family to hire assassins to ambush the young master outside the city. Even the incident years ago, where the young master was framed and fled, was orchestrated by him in league with the Black Wind bandits. Each accusation is backed by irrefutable evidence. Qin Tianba, what further defense can you muster? This proclamation detonated like a bombshell in the hall, leaving everyone in stunned silence. Selling ancestral property. This was a grave taboo for the family, regardless of internal strife. Even if it led to bloodshed, it was still a matter contained within the family. Yet, the moment ancestral lands were sold to outsiders, it was tantamount to forsaking their heritage, marking one as a traitor to the clan. What? Selling the Xiantai mines? Those are the lifeblood of the Qin family. Without the mines, how shall we sustain ourselves? Qin Tianba, you wretched beast. How dare you? I spit on you. Here I was, supporting you, only to discover you are a treacherous wolf in sheep's clothing. The elders and stewards who had once stood behind Qin Tianba now recoiled as if they had seen a ghost, hastily retreating, eager to distance themselves from him, fearing the wrath of their enraged kin. Even those who were his most trusted confidants lowered their heads, too fearful to utter a word. The tide had turned. He was now abandoned by all. Qin Tianba surveyed the myriad eyes filled with hatred and contempt around him, his complexion shifting from pale to ashen. He understood that he was finished, his reputation tarnished, the hearts of the people scattered. The position of the Qin family head would forever elude him. What a fine turn of events. Qin Tianba suddenly threw his head back and laughed, his laughter both haunting and frenzied. Now that the veil of pretense had been torn away, he saw no reason to maintain the facade. Indeed, it was I who did it, and so what? The victors write history, and the fate of the defeated is but a footnote. He abruptly turned to Wang Fuguwei, his eyes gleaming with a mad ferocity. Brother Wang, it has come to this. We have no retreat. Let us not hesitate any longer. We shall eliminate everyone present in this hall today. Once they are all dead, who will know the truth of this day? The Qin family will remain under our control. Wang Fuguwei, too, was a ruthless man, and when cornered, his ferocity surged forth. He slammed the iron walnut in his hand onto the ground. Damn it, Let us go for broke. Everyone, take action. Block the doors. Not a single fly shall escape. Today, the Qin family shall change hands. Those who follow me shall prosper, and those who oppose me shall perish. With Wang Fugui's command, the group of Wang family guards he had brought swiftly drew their weapons. Each one, brimming with murderous intent, advanced menacingly towards the Qin family members in the hall. These guards were formidable practitioners at the foundation establishment stage, far surpassing the pampered elders of the Qin family. Chaos erupted in the hall, filled with screams and cries that echoed throughout. Qin Tianba, have you lost your mind? Are you intent on exterminating your own clan? Qin Tian, incensed, rose from his seat, trembling with rage. Exterminate the clan? Qin Tianba sneered, a gleaming long sword now in his hand. As long as you father and son are dead, the Qin family will endure. It will merely have a new master. With that, he lunged towards the main seat where Qin Tian sat, intending to capture him as a hostage to turn the tide. Just at that critical moment, a thunderous roar erupted, akin to a clap of thunder. The roof of the conference hall suddenly exploded, and countless tiles and stones rained down like a torrential downpour. Following this, the surrounding windows shattered simultaneously. Dozens of elite soldiers clad in black armor, wielding long spears, descended like divine warriors, instantly storming into the hall. A chilling, iron-blooded aura enveloped the entire area. Chapter 26. Suppressing the rebellion, a voice of unparalleled authority reverberated through the hall. The black-armored army of the city lord's mansion is here. Who dares to cause trouble? Zhao Qinglong, adorned in azure battle armor and wielding a spear, landed beside Qin Yu with a thud, cracking the ground beneath him into a spiderweb of fissures. His gaze, sharp as lightning, swept coldly over Wang Fugui and Qin Tianba. Wang Fugui, Qin Tianba, colluding with the Black Wind Camp, plotting against the young Master Qin, and stealing the city defense mine maps. All these are capital offenses. The city lord has decreed that you shall be taken into custody. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. This sudden turn of events left everyone in shock. Wang Fugui surveyed the dense ranks of the black armored army surrounding them, along with the terrifying presence of Zhao Qinglong. The last flicker of hope within him was extinguished. This was a trap. Clearly, it was a deadly snare laid specifically for him and Qin Tianba. Zhao Qinglong, you are forcing us to our doom. Wang Fugui's eyes burned with desperation as he let out a despairing roar. Since there is no mercy shown, I shall take a few with me. With a thunderous roar, Wang Fugui unleashed the full force of his mid-foundation cultivation, charging recklessly towards Zhao Qinglong like a maddened wild boar. Seeking death, Zhao Qinglong scoffed coldly, his spear flickering like shards of ice as he met the onslaught. Meanwhile, Qin Tianba, sensing the tide turning against him, allowed a glimmer of malice to flash in his eyes. Rather than aiding Wang Fugui, he seized the opportunity to redirect his sword towards the seemingly frail Qin Tian. Brother, I shall borrow your head. Capturing Qin Tian would grant him leverage to escape this dire situation. The strike was as swift as lightning, aimed with lethal precision at Qin Tian's throat. Clang! A crisp sound of metal meeting metal resonated through the air. A rusted iron sword appeared, resolutely blocking the deadly thrust. Qin Yu stood firm before his father, wielding the sword with unyielding strength. He regarded the astonished Qin Tianba with a cold smirk. Second uncle, did you ask me before attempting to harm my father? Qin Tianba was taken aback. How could you possibly withstand my attack? I am in mid-foundation. Though his previous strike had not been delivered with full force, it was certainly not something a mere Qi refinement stage could counter. Unable to withstand, Qin Yu shook his head, his gaze sharpening abruptly. Second uncle, your perspective is exceedingly narrow. With a resounding surge, an overwhelming aura erupted from within Qin Yu. No longer merely at the 8th level of Qi refinement, he had ascended to the pinnacle of the 9th level. Even more alarming was the ancient, chaotic essence intertwined with his spiritual energy. Though it was but a trace, it utterly eclipsed Qin Tianba's strength. 9th level of Qi refinement. Qin Tianba's eyes nearly bulged in disbelief. Just days ago, he had been at the 8th level, and now he had soared to the 9th? Was this lad nourished by celestial elixirs? Father, there's no need for pretense. Let us act together to cleanse our domain, Qin Yu declared in a low voice. Upon hearing this, Qin Tian straightened, his previously pallid visage flushed with vigor. An overwhelming aura of mid-foundation cultivation radiated from him without reserve. Very well. Let us unite as father and son and slay this beast. Qin Tian laughed heartily, drawing a soft sword from his waist, standing shoulder to shoulder with Qin Yu. Qin Tianba was utterly dumbfounded. Has your poison been lifted? How could this be possible? That was an incurable chronic poison. Qin Yu dismissed his words with ease. Flowing cloud sword technique, twin dragons emerged from the sea. With a flick of his rusted sword, the sword energy surged forth like a dragon. aiming directly at Qin Tianba's face. Qin Tian also moved in perfect synchrony, his soft sword weaving like a serpent to restrain Qin Tianba's lower defenses. As father and son coordinated flawlessly, the clang of their weapons reverberated throughout the hall. Qin Tianba, already in disarray, found his strength further diminished after being previously injured by Zhao Qinlong's attack on his life's spiritual artifact. At this moment, besieged by Qin Yu and his father, Qin Tianba found himself retreating step by step, utterly disheveled and humiliated. Especially Qin Yu, wielding that rusted sword as if it were a divine weapon. Each swing was powerful and resonant, sending tingles through Qin Tianba's hands. This was no mere Qi refinement stage. He was clearly facing a human-shaped beast. I refuse to accept this. Qin Tianba, with disheveled hair, resembled a madman. He never imagined that after 20 years of scheming, he would ultimately be defeated by a mere boy. Refusal? Then let me beat you into submission. A glint of cold light flashed in Qin Yu's eyes. The chaotic divine cauldron within his dantian trembled slightly, and a surge of pure power flowed into the sword. Break! The rusted sword emitted a dragon's roar, forcefully cleaving through Qin Tianba's protective spiritual energy. With a piercing sound, the sword light flashed, and Qin Tianba let out a wretched scream as his right arm was severed at the root, blood gushing forth. My hand! Before he could even comprehend it, a kick from Qin Tian sent him crashing against the wall, his body collapsing like a puddle of mud. His dantian shattered, his cultivation obliterated. The scene transpired with astonishing swiftness. From Qin Yu's strike to Qin Tianba's downfall, it was merely a matter of a few fleeting breaths. Meanwhile, on the other side, Wang Fugui could not withstand more than 10 moves against Zhao Qinglong. After all, Zhao Qinglong was at the late foundation establishment stage, a seasoned warrior. Bang! Zhao Qinglong's spear struck Wang Fugui's knee with a sharp crack. Wang Fugui cried out in agony as he collapsed to the ground. Several armored soldiers rushed in, binding him tightly like a hog. As for the Wang family's guards, they either perished or surrendered under the onslaught of the armored troops. A thick stench of blood permeated the entire conference hall, primarily the blood of traitors and invaders. The air was heavy with an acrid scent. Qin Tianba lay on the ground like a dead dog, with Qin Yu's foot firmly pressing down on his chest. The once formidable elder was now disheveled and bloodied. His eyes, filled with malice, were fixed on Qin Yu, as he let out a hoarse, wind-like roar from his throat. Qin Yu, you wretched beast. May you suffer a terrible fate. Even as a ghost, I will not spare you. I am your second uncle. How dare you kill me? To slay me is an act of great rebellion. Qin Yu looked down at the filth beneath his feet, his gaze devoid of any emotion, like one observing a pest easily crushed beneath a shoe. Second uncle? You were merely an adopted son taken in by my grandfather, bearing no blood relation to the Qin family. Moreover, when you colluded with bandits to ambush me, when you poisoned my father's bowl, when you sold ancestral property to outsiders, did you ever consider that you were my second uncle? Qin Yu's voice was soft yet resonant, piercing the ears of everyone present with clarity. The once hopeful companions of Qin Tianba now trembled like leaves in a gale, too fearful to lift their heads. Qin Tianba struggled, proclaiming, I am the Grand Elder, a benefactor of the Qin family. You cannot. A flash of cold light interrupted his words. His voice ceased abruptly, and a head, marked by sheer terror, rolled away, blood gushing from the neck. Qin Yu sheathed his sword with fluid grace, not even blinking. In your next life, remember to be human. A profound silence enveloped the room. No one anticipated that Qin Yu would dare to publicly execute the Grand Elder. Such decisiveness, devoid of hesitation, left all in awe. Was this the method of the young master? Ruthless, resolute, and domineering. Qin Tian stood aside, gazing at his brother's lifeless body, his eyes reflecting a mix of complexity before stealing with determination. Such a familial malignancy, if not eradicated, would not quell the people's wrath nor establish the family's authority. Excellent. Zhao Qinglong strode forward, kicking aside Qin Tianba's corpse, his face alight with admiration. Brother Qin, your decisiveness in execution marks you as one destined for greatness. Bring Wang Fugui, that glutton, to the dungeons for his reckoning. Several members of the black armored army promptly advanced, dragging the already paralyzed Wang Fugui away as if he were a lifeless beast. Zhao Qinglong surveyed the crowd, his voice booming. The Wang family colluded with bandits, plotting to harm the young master of the Qin family. The evidence is irrefutable. I hereby order the immediate confiscation of all Wang family properties. Upon hearing this, a playful smile graced Qin Yu's lips as he clasped his hands in salute to Zhao Qinglong. Brother Zhao, the confiscation of the Wang family's assets is just. However, my Qin family has also suffered considerable losses in quelling the rebellion, not to mention the mines that Qin Tianba unscrupulously sold off. Zhao Qinglong, astute as he was, grasped Qin Yu's underlying intent. With Qin Yu now a key figure sought after by the city lord's manor and a prospective powerhouse, it was imperative to grant him this concession. Rest assured, my brother, the 3 Xian iron mines in the Western District shall be returned to their rightful owner. Furthermore, the 2 medicinal mountains under the Wang family's name will also be ceded to the Qin family as compensation for your family's spiritual losses. These words ignited a gleam of ambition in the eyes of the Qin family members. From misfortune arises fortune. Not only had they reclaimed their ancestral assets, but they had also gained 2 medicinal mountains, setting the Qin family on a path toward ascendance rather than decline. Qin Yu smiled slightly. Thank you, Brother Xiao. Should the city lord's manor require our assistance in the future, the Qin family will not hesitate. After bidding farewell to Zhao Qinglong and the black-armored army, the smile on Qin Yu's face vanished. He turned, his gaze slicing through the remaining elders and stewards in the hall. It was time to address the refuse within his own household. Over the next 3 days, the Qin residents underwent an unprecedented purging. Qin Yu showed no mercy. All those involved in the rebellion of Qin Tianba, belonging to the collateral core, were stripped of their cultivation and expelled from Qingyuan city, forever barred from employment. Those opportunists, although they preserved their lives, surrendered their actual power, and were relegated to peripheral industries to live out their days in obscurity. The entire Qin family underwent a thorough reorganization under Qin Yu's meticulous guidance. Though young, Qin Bufan proved to be exceptionally loyal and astute in his tasks. Qin Yu, with a decisive stroke, elevated him to the position of the family's chief steward, entrusting him with the management of internal affairs and financial authority. In no time, the Qin family was rejuvenated, shedding its previous air of despondency and breathing forth a vibrant new energy. On the 3rd night, in the depths of the prison, Wang Fuguei was shackled to the torture rack, his once imposing bulk now trembling with fear. Young Master Qin, please spare me, he pleaded. I have disclosed all that I know. It was truly Qin Tianba who coerced me. Qin Yu sat in an imposing chair, casually toying with a glowing iron branding tool. His gaze fixated on Wang Fuguei. Wang, I have little patience for empty words, he said coldly. Though Qin Tianba was nefarious, he lacked the audacity and cunning to forge connections in the capital. Who, after all, provided the orders for the ambush that led to my escape? Wang Fuguei's eyes flickered nervously as he stammered. I truly do not know. I am merely a businessman. Qin Yu snickered, setting the branding tool aside. If you prefer silence, then remain silent. He rose and approached Wang Fuguei, his eyes darkening to an inky abyss, reminiscent of 2 unfathomable black holes. Gaze into my eyes. Instinctively, Wang Fuguei looked up, and in that moment, he felt as though his very soul was ensnared by an invisible hand. Soul-searching technique, he screamed, his cries echoing through the dark prison, sending shivers down the spines of the guards outside. Moments later, Qin Yu released him, and Wang Fuguei, now rolling his eyes and frothing at the mouth, had been rendered utterly idiotic. Qin Yu wiped his hands, his expression as dark as a stormy sky. From Wang Fuguei's memories, he unearthed a shocking revelation. Qin Tianba was merely a pawn in someone else's game. The true mastermind colluding with the Black Wind Stronghold was a prominent figure from the capital. Moreover, the leader of the Black Wind Stronghold was not just an ordinary bandit chief, but a malevolent practitioner of heretical cultivation techniques. A cultivator in the later stages of Foundation establishment. This sinister figure specialized in capturing able-bodied men and cultivators, using their essence to enhance his dark powers. Even more astonishing was the realization that the missing golden core ancestor of the Qin family, presumed dead on the battlefield 5 years prior, had instead been ambushed by the Black Wind Stronghold and trapped in an undisclosed location. What a formidable Black Wind Stronghold! What a significant figure in the capital! Qin Yu seethed, his eyes glinting with murderous intent. This game was indeed vast. Just as Qin Yu was lost in contemplation, the prison door was suddenly flung open. Qin Bufan, bloodied and disheveled, stumbled in, his face a mask of terror and rage. Brother, something grave has occurred. Qin Yu furrowed his brow and swiftly supported Qin Bufan, exclaiming, what are you panicking about? The sky will not fall. What has happened? Qin Bufan gasped for breath, tears glistening in his eyes. The caravan we dispatched to procure medicinal herbs from the neighboring city was ambushed on its return journey. Over 30 brothers perished, with none surviving. All the goods were plundered, and the bodies were displayed at the city gates of Qingyuan. In an instant, Qin Yu's aura surged, causing the temperature around him to plummet to freezing levels. Let us go and investigate. At the gates of Qingyuan, a crowd of citizens had gathered. Along the city walls hung a row of bloodied corpses, swaying in the wind. The bodies bore horrific wounds, some eviscerated, others missing limbs, clearly having endured unspeakable torment in life. Among the corpses, a blood-soaked war letter was nailed, its chaotic script exuding a palpable scent of blood. Kill my allies, sever my livelihood. In 3 days, the Qin family will be bathed in blood, leaving no survivors. Signed, Black Wind Stronghold, Bloodhand Butcher. Standing beneath the city wall, Qin Yu gazed upon the once vibrant faces of his kin, now rendered into cold corpses. An overwhelming fury ignited within his chest. This was a provocation, a blatant slap in the face. The destruction of Qin Tianba and the Wang family had evidently threatened the interests of Black Wind Stronghold, or perhaps the shadowy mastermind was growing desperate, seeking to eliminate witnesses. What shall we do, head of the family? The leader of Black Wind Stronghold is at the late stage of foundation establishment, commanding hundreds of ruthless followers. Our Qin family has just endured internal strife. How can we withstand this? Suggested the arriving Qin family members, their faces pale and filled with dread. Fear spread through the crowd like a plague. Qin Yu abruptly turned, his gaze sharp as lightning, sweeping over everyone present. Flee. Where would you run? The roots of the Qin family lie here. They have already mounted our necks, and yet you think of escape? His voice, though not loud, carried an undeniable authority. Instantly quelling the chaos among the crowd, he pointed at the blood letter on the wall, a sinister smile curling at the corners of his mouth. A bloodbath in 3 days? Such audacity. If they wish to play, then I shall engage them in a grand game. Relay my command. Prepare for battle. Rather than await our demise, we shall take the initiative. 3 days? I will not wait. I intend to flatten Black Wind Stronghold before they strike. I will hang the head of that so-called Bloodhand Butcher at the entrance of the Qin family as a night pot. His declaration sent shockwaves through the crowd. To take the offensive against the notoriously difficult-to-attack Black Wind Stronghold seemed utterly insane. Yet, gazing into Qin Yu's eyes, ablaze with battle fervor, the fear within the hearts of the onlookers inexplicably dissipated, replaced by a long-lost zeal. If the young master believed it was possible, then surely it could be achieved. Upon returning to the Qin residence, Qin Yu wasted no time and promptly summoned the 30 death warriors selected by Qin Bufan. These young men were primarily from collateral branches or were loyal guards whom Qin Yu had saved, ensuring their unwavering fidelity. In the training grounds, the 30 stood in disciplined formation. Though their cultivation levels were modest, mostly at the 5th or 6th layer of Qi refinement, their gazes were resolute. Qin Yu produced a jade vial and poured out 30 round, fragrant pills. These were the essence cleansing pills. Consuming them would purge one's marrow and refine one's essence, facilitating a rebirth of sorts. However, the process would be excruciating, with the potential for death. Those fearful of such a fate were welcome to withdraw now. The 30 warriors gazed at the legendary pills, their eyes igniting with fervor. None took a step back, willing to die for the young master. Excellent, Qin Yu declared, sweeping his hand to distribute the pills. From this day forth, you shall be the chaotic guards of the Qin family. For the next 3 days, I shall train you with utmost rigor. If you endure, you will become the daggers thrust into the hearts of our enemies. After making the necessary arrangements, Qin Yu retreated alone into a secret chamber. With a great battle looming, he needed to enhance his own strength. Although he had reached the pinnacle of the 9th layer of Qi refinement in Qingyuan City, it was insufficient when facing late-stage foundation-building adversaries. Before him lay the millions of spirit stones seized from the Wang family, alongside the 9 curves spiritual ginseng purchased at a hefty price. Taking a deep breath, Qin Yu sat cross-legged. In my past life, I was an emperor. Though my foundation was solid, it was not without flaws. In this life, with the chaotic divine cauldron at my disposal, I shall carve a path never before traversed, to reach the 10th layer of Qi refinement, the ultimate realm. For ordinary cultivators, the 9th layer of Qi refinement represented completion, after which one would transition to foundation building. Yet, it is said that in ancient times, unparalleled prodigies shattered these constraints to attain the 10th layer. Those who achieved this would possess 3 times the spiritual energy of their peers, with a flawless foundation, enabling them to challenge foes of higher realms with ease. Chaotic divine art, heed my call, Qin Yu exclaimed. Instantly, the pile of spirit stones behind him erupted, transforming into a torrent of spiritual energy that surged violently into his body. He swallowed the 9 curves spiritual ginseng whole, its potent essence rampaging through his meridians. Pain, excruciating, soul-rending pain. It felt as though every bone in his body was being shattered and reformed. Yet, Qin Yu did not even flinch. This level of suffering was but a trifling annoyance to him. 1 day, 2 days, the concentration of spiritual energy in the chamber reached a terrifying level, even condensing into a mist. Just as dawn approached on the 3rd day, a crisp crack echoed within Qin Yu's body, reminiscent of shackles being broken. Boom! A vast, pure surge of spiritual energy, imbued with a hint of chaotic essence, erupted from his dantian. Qin Yu's eyes flew open, 2 beams of golden light shooting forth. 10th layer of Qi refinement, the ultimate realm, achieved. At this moment, although he had not yet established his foundation. The depth of his spiritual power was already on par with that of an ordinary mid-foundation cultivator. Coupled with the battle experience of the Emperor and the chaotic divine art, slaying a late-stage foundation cultivator was no longer a mere fantasy. Just as Qin Yu was preparing to exit his seclusion, the chaotic divine cauldron, which had lain dormant deep within his dantian, suddenly began to tremble violently. The ancient patterns on the cauldron glowed, and a hazy, shadowy map gradually emerged. As Qin Yu focused his gaze, his pupils abruptly contracted. A flickering point of light on the map unmistakably indicated the location of the Black Wind stronghold, 300 miles outside the city. An overwhelming sense of urgency surged within him. It was the chaotic divine cauldron's yearning for its own fragments. Qin Yu sprang to his feet, a hint of excitement curling at the corners of his mouth. What had initially been a simple mission to eliminate a stronghold unexpectedly revealed a treasure. The second fragment of the chaotic divine cauldron was, astonishingly, located at the Black Wind stronghold. It seemed that this trip was absolutely necessary. Black Wind stronghold, blood-soaked butcher. Clean your neck and prepare the treasures of your esteemed Qin grandfather. I am here to collect. 3 days swiftly passed. In the training ground of the Qin residence's back mountain, the air felt as if it had solidified, thick with an oppressive aura of impending slaughter. 30 men clad in black combat attire stood in perfect formation. Just 3 days prior, they had been a group of scattered-eyed, variedly skilled junior relatives or ordinary guards. But at this moment, they resembled 30 emotionless killing machines. Their gazes were as cold as ice, devoid of any superfluous emotions, marked only by absolute obedience to orders and a bloodthirsty desire simmering beneath the surface. The potency of the cleansing marrow pill was overwhelming. During these 3 days, they had endured hellish torment. Some had fainted from the pain, only to be splashed with cold water to awaken and continue their training. Others had broken bones, yet persisted in their training. Not only had they undergone a transformation, but their cultivation levels had also generally ascended to the 7th or 8th stage of Qi refinement. More importantly, they had mastered the simplified combined attack formation, the Shura battle array, taught by Qin Yu. With his hands clasped behind his back, Qin Yu's gaze flickered like lightning as it swept over the 30 faces. Not bad. You're beginning to take shape. He nodded approvingly, then waved his hand. Clang. Several heavy boxes were thrown to the ground, their lids flung open, revealing a blinding cold light. Inside were 30 long knives, entirely black, their blades shimmering with a ghostly blue light. The blades were narrow and straight, designed by Qin Yu himself, combining his memories from a past life with the mystical iron of this world. This type of blade was particularly effective for both slashing and stabbing, possessing formidable armor-piercing capabilities. In addition to the knives, there were also 30 sets of lightweight yet resilient soft armor, woven from a century-old silk and fine iron wire stored in the Wang family's treasury, rendering them impervious to the average blade. This is my gift to you. Qin Yu's voice, though not loud, resonated clearly in everyone's ears. Tonight, I command you to sharpen this blade with the blood of our enemies. Yes, young master. 30 voices thundered in unison, their fervor palpable and their murderous intent soaring. At the forefront of the ranks stood Qin Bufan, gripping a reinforced Tang sword, his excitement causing his whole body to tremble. This is the task befitting a man. Fully prepared, they ventured into the depths of the night. Qin Yu led his team to the courtyard, where Qin Tian had been waiting for some time. Observing this fierce company, he couldn't help but feel a surge of apprehension. Could this truly be the same group of inexperienced novices from 3 days prior? Do you truly not require your father to accompany you? Qin Tian's brow furrowed with concern. After all, the leader of Black Wind Stronghold was in the late stage of foundation building, a nefarious practitioner with cunning methods. Qin Yu shook his head, adjusting his father's collar. Father, a family cannot be without a leader, even for a day. We are making a grand exit from the city, and one cannot be certain that there aren't spies from other factions lurking within. Should this be a ruse to draw us away, and our home falls to intruders, that would spell disaster. You must remain here to activate the protective family array, allowing me to proceed without worry. As he spoke, Qin Yu produced a jade talisman from his pocket and pressed it into Qin Tian's hand. This contains a fragment of my consciousness. If you encounter an insurmountable foe, shatter it. Qin Tian held the talisman, feeling its warmth and nodding resolutely. Very well, I shall prepare the celebratory wine at home, awaiting your triumphant return. Qin Yu mounted his steed and tugged on the reins. Let us depart. Over 30 riders surged forth like phantoms in the night, silently escaping Qingyuan city, heading straight for Black Wind Mountain, 300 miles away. Black Wind Mountain, with its treacherous terrain and jagged stones, offered only a single winding and perilous path to the summit, a true fortress that could withstand any assault. This was the reason Black Wind Stronghold had thrived here for years, leaving even the authorities helpless. As the night deepened, with the moon obscured and the winds howling, Qin Yu reined in his warhorse at the mountain's base and signaled for the others to dismount and proceed on foot. Wrap the horse's hooves, leave 2 to keep watch, he instructed softly. He then led the remaining 28 men, like geckos, scaling the steep cliff under the cover of darkness. He avoided the solitary path meant for the dead. Half an hour later, they reached the mountain's midsection, where the lights of the stronghold flickered faintly above, accompanied by the distant sounds of revelry carried on the wind. Qin Yu gestured for everyone to conceal themselves. He closed his eyes, a soft glow flickering at his brow. Boom. An invisible wave of consciousness unfurled like an immense spider's web, enveloping Black Wind stronghold at the summit. Although Qin Yu's cultivation was still nascent, his current consciousness sufficed to probe the hideout of a band of thieves. The scene within the bandit stronghold vividly imprinted itself in Qin Yu's mind. The hall of camaraderie was ablaze with light and filled with the intoxicating aroma of food and drink. Hundreds of bandits congregated, drinking heartily and feasting liberally. In the center of the hall lay dozens of crates, brimming with the plundered goods of the Qin merchant caravan. Several scantily clad women were ensnared in the arms of the bandits, their terrified cries met with raucous laughter. Drink up. What a joyous occasion. With Qin's plump lamb in our grasp, we can indulge for months. One boisterous voice proclaimed. I hear that the young master of the Qin family intends to eradicate us? Huh, what a laugh. That boy hasn't even sprouted his first hair. If he dares approach, I shall chop him into pieces for dumplings. Qin Yu slowly opened his eyes, a glint of bloodthirst flashing within. Still celebrating, are they? Excellent. Once they are sated, it shall be the perfect time to strike. He glanced back at Qin Bufan and the others, signaling them with a motion across his throat. The guards above were lax, with only 4 sentinels posted. Stay close and silent, he instructed. In a blur, Qin Yu melded with the shadows, vanishing from sight. Atop the watchtower outside the stronghold, 2 bandits leaned against the railing, dozing off with rusty iron knives cradled in their arms, drool pooling beneath them. Suddenly, a gentle breeze swept through. The bandit on the left felt a chill at his neck, but before he could open his eyes, crack. A faint, crisp sound echoed as his head slumped lifelessly, unable to utter a scream. The same fate befell the bandit on the right, executed with identical precision. Like a specter, Qin Yu swiftly eliminated all the outer sentinels, relying solely on his physical prowess and exquisite technique, without resorting to any spiritual energy. Murder is an art. Having dispatched the sentinels, Qin Yu approached the entrance of the stronghold, which was shrouded in a delicate veil of white mist, lending it an air of mystery. A concealment formation? A smirk of disdain curled upon his lips. Such a rudimentary array appeared to him as simplistic as a child's doodle. Without a second glance, he kicked several stones from the ground. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The stones flew through the air, striking the critical points of the formation with pinpoint accuracy. The white mist quivered before vanishing without a trace. The entrance to the stronghold swung wide open. Qin Yu gestured for his companions, who immediately understood his intent, gripping their tang swords tightly as they stealthily advanced within. The outer stronghold served as the dwelling place for common ruffians, most of whom were utterly inebriated. Sprawled on the ground in deep slumber, their snores reverberating like thunder. This granted the Chaos Guards an opportune moment. The sound of blades slicing through flesh pierced the night air with a chilling clarity. Qin Bufan and the others remained expressionless, their hands rising and falling with lethal efficiency. Every strike precisely severed the throats of the bandits, blood gushing forth and staining the ground, as well as their battle armor. In the brief span of an incense stick's burning, dozens of ruffians in the outer stronghold met their demise in a bewildered slumber. A pungent scent of blood permeated the air. At that moment, a drunken bandit leader staggered out from a dwelling, loosening his belt in preparation for urination. Groggily, he observed the bodies strewn across the ground, mistaking them for drunken comrades. Hey, wake up and continue drinking, he exclaimed, kicking one of the fallen. A bloodied head rolled to his feet, its unblinking eyes fixated upon him. The leader's inebriation dissipated almost instantaneously. Rubbing his eyes, he discerned the horrific scene illuminated by the moonlight. Corpses littered the ground, blood pooled everywhere, and a group of black-clad figures, wielding bloodied blades, stared at him with a chilling gaze. A wave of dread surged through him. Chapter 30. The Shura Battle Array. Enemy attack. We are under siege. The piercing screams instantly shattered the silence of the night, followed by the frantic clang of gongs. The entire Black Wind stronghold erupted into chaos. Chapter 29. The Shura Battle Array. The massacre begins. Having been exposed, there was no longer any need for concealment. Qin Yu emerged from the shadows, gazing at the tightly shut inner gate, a cruel smile curving his lips. Initially, he wished for their deaths to be serene. Since they desired a more tumultuous end, he would oblige. With a deep breath, his right leg tensed with power. Channeling his strength, he delivered a forceful kick. Boom! The heavy wooden door, reinforced with iron and weighing 1,000 pounds, shattered as if it were made of paper. Countless wooden splinters and shards of metal shot forth like hidden projectiles. Bandits rushing to barricade the door were impaled by the debris, shrieking as they were flung backward. Kill! Qin Yu commanded. 30 Chaos Guards roared in unison, surging forward like a black torrent into the inner courtyard. Who dares invade my Black Wind stronghold? Seek death. In the inner stronghold, hundreds of bandits poured out from various quarters, brandishing an assortment of weapons, some even neglecting to fasten their trousers, exuding a fearsome demeanor while cursing loudly. Upon realizing that only 30 individuals had breached their defenses, they momentarily paused, then erupted into raucous laughter. Ha ha, I thought it was the government troops. Turns out it's just a few insignificant pests. 30 men dare to attack Black Wind stronghold? Have their brains been kicked by a donkey? Brothers, do not waste words with them. Chop the men into pieces for the dogs, and leave the leader for me to use as a chamber pot. A burly, brutish figure wielding a massive wolf-tooth club emerged from the throng. This individual, possessing the peak cultivation of the Qi refinement stage, was a sight to behold with his glistening, muscular physique, exuding a formidable aura. With a menacing grin, he swung his club, cutting through the air with a fierce whoosh, charging directly at the foremost Qin Bufon. Little brat, meet your demise. The wolf-tooth club descended with overwhelming force. In the face of this ferocious assault, Qin Bufon remained utterly composed, not even attempting to evade. A glimmer of cold determination flashed in his eyes as he commanded, "Form the formation." Instantly, 2 Chaos Guards flanked him, positioning themselves in a triangular formation. At that moment, their energies inexplicably coalesced into a singular entity. Shura-slash. Simultaneously, the trio unleashed their blades. 3 beams of light converged in the air, forming a colossal crimson arc that met the wolf-tooth club with tremendous force. Clang! A sharp sound rang out as the iron club was cleaved in half. The brutish leader's grin froze, disbelief etched across his face. How is this possible? Before he could comprehend the situation, 3 Tang swords struck with the swiftness of venomous serpents, piercing his throat, heart, and dantian. Splurt! Blood gushed forth. The peak Qi refinement master was rendered asunder before he could even emit a cry, collapsing into a pool of his own blood. A profound silence enveloped the scene. The bandits, who had previously laughed raucously, now appeared as if their throats had been seized. Their mirth abruptly silenced. Eyes wide in shock, they beheld the dismembered body on the ground, a chill coursing through them from their feet to the crown of their heads. One strike? A master of the peak Qi refinement stage fell to 3 practitioners of the 7th and 8th levels in a mere instant? What manner of swordsmanship is this? That formation is peculiar. Everyone, be cautious. From a vantage point, Qin Yu observed this spectacle, nodding in satisfaction. This was the power of the Shura battle formation. 3 individuals working in unison, both offensive and defensive, capable of slaying foes beyond their level. What are you dawdling for? Kill! Qin Yu's icy voice resonated once more. The Chaos Guards sprang into action. They formed groups of 3, piercing through the ranks of the bandits like 10 sharp blades. Thud! 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 This was an unequal slaughter. Although the bandits numbered in the hundreds, they were disorganized, attacking recklessly. In contrast, the Chaos Guards moved with perfect synergy, retreating and advancing with precision. The bandits' blades struck the Chaos Guard soft armor, leaving only white marks, failing to penetrate their defenses. Yet, the Xian Iron Tang swords wielded by the Chaos Guards were instruments of unparalleled lethality. With a single stroke, they could cleave both flesh and weapon in twain. Ah, my hand. Help. This blade is too swift. I can't defend against it. It's utterly unstoppable. The cacophony of screams, wails, and clashing weapons reverberated throughout the entire Black Wind stronghold. The ground was stained crimson with blood, converging into small streams. Severed limbs and dismembered arms were strewn about haphazardly. This was not a battle, it was a one-sided harvest. In the span of a mere incense stick's burning time, the earth lay littered with the corpses of over 100 bandits. The remaining outlaws, their courage shattered, retreated step by step, their faces ashen, trembling in fear of advancing further. This cadre of cloaked figures was nothing short of demonic. At that moment, a furious roar echoed from the depths of the assembly hall. A bunch of useless fools. You can't even handle a few dozen men. What purpose do I serve in keeping you? Boom. A tremendous aura erupted forth. A burly man, bare-chested, emerged with 2 ornate axes in hand, charging forth like a raging bull. His face was adorned with a thick beard, his eyes glowing crimson, his entire being radiating a violent surge of spiritual energy. He was none other than the second-in-command of the Black Wind Stronghold, a foundational stage cultivator. Get out of my way. The second-in-command bellowed, his dual axes swirling like a tempest as he cleaved through the bandits obstructing his path. His gaze fell upon Qin Bufan, who was ruthlessly dispatching foes, and a murderous intent flared in his eyes. You little wretch, daring to slay my men from the Black Wind Stronghold. I shall cleave you in two. With a mighty leap, he brought his axes down upon Qin Bufan with the force to split mountains. The oppressive pressure of a foundational stage cultivator instantly locked onto Qin Bufan. Qin Bufan's expression shifted. He felt as though a mountain had descended upon him, rendering him nearly immobile. Is this the power of the foundational stage? Even with the support of a battle formation, he felt utterly insignificant in the face of absolute strength. Die? The second-in-command sneered, envisioning the gruesome sight of Qin Bufan being severed in half. Just as the situation reached a critical point, Qin Yu, who had been observing coldly from a high vantage, finally made his move. He did not draw his sword, nor did he even shift his stance. He simply raised his right hand slowly, bringing his index and middle fingers together, and flicked them lightly toward the airborne second-in-command. A piercing sound echoed, whoosh. An invisible sword energy shot forth from his fingertips in an instant. It was swift, so swift that it transcended sound and eluded visual perception. The second-in-command in midair felt a chill at his brow, and then the world around him began to spin and distort.